The kid went to take the adventurer exam. On the written test, he got absolutely everything wrong. Every single question on the paper was incorrect. They laughed, just another clueless country boy. Then came the practical test. They threw everyone into the forest: archers, mercenaries, veteran fighters. Everyone went after what they knew best, but the country boy returned dragging a giant red bear, the whole animal, not just the claw or the bile. He simply had no clue how to harvest only the useful parts. Other recruits in the woods claimed they saw him draw his sword, and in a flash the bear collapsed on the spot. Nobody saw the strike. Silence, but even then, they just called him a lucky country kid. For the final round, the examiner set up a duel. This nameless kid had to face two seasoned rankers at once. First up was Eddie Markman, a prodigy from the world's greatest archery family, ranked since age 5. Then came Owl Darcis, a brutal mercenary who single-handedly destroyed an entire criminal syndicate, crushing 7 top executives and their boss. Both professionals looked at the kid and felt deeply insulted, sharing the arena. The match began. Eddie let loose the very first arrow. The kid dodged, lunging straight at Owl with a speed the crowd couldn't follow. Clashing blades, furious trades, no spectator could track their movements. Suddenly, the boy shattered Owl's defense. The finishing strike was ready. Seeing his opening, Eddie unleashed a deadly arrow right at him. But he sliced the projectile clean in half midair without even stopping. The crowd froze, then they felt it, a heavy, suffocating aura. Thick and green flooded the hall. The examiner, Luke, who spent his career analyzing high-tier warriors without ever getting excited about them, watched the kid and realized one terrifying truth: this boy is a monster. Yet nobody there actually knew what drove him to stand in that arena. In this world, your rank determines your worth and dictates your desires. It is a society where influence, money, and raw power rule everything. And this is where the journey of 16-year-old Lo begins, far from the spotlight. He is just gathering wood when a needy neighbor asks for help. Out of nowhere, a girl tackles the man, furiously demanding they stop treating Lo like a personal servant. Meet Yuna, also 16, who spends every single day aggressively shielding Lo from being exploited. She complains that everyone walks all over him because he acts lazy. But in truth, his gentle, selfless nature is his biggest downfall. Then she begs him to escape the village with her, using a secret route. But an angry elder cuts them off, reminding them of the strict laws forbidding anyone from ever leaving, and she immediately scolds the girl. The grandmother even demands she be locked away for trying to run. Moments later, another villager walks up, asking for help to fetch water, and Lo agrees instantly. He and Yuna are the only teenagers in this isolated town, yet they are total opposites. A neighbor tells Lo to take a break and pursue his own dreams, but even then, the boy chooses to keep his word and help carry the heavy buckets. He owes everything to the villagers. When his parents died, they took him in. They treated him like family, making sure he never felt lonely. That is why he loves them so much. He wants to repay their kindness. Hearing this, the traveler gets emotional, asking if Lo wants to live with him. But Lo refuses. To him, the villagers are the most important thing. The outside world, it means absolutely nothing to him, not a single thing. Meanwhile, Yuna is locked up. Her grandmother scolds her for trying to run. The girl protests. Why can they not just leave this village? Merchants come and go constantly. Why are they the only ones trapped here? The world out there is massive, but her grandmother only replies they are outcasts. She refuses to explain why, only whispering that time will eventually settle it. Elsewhere, as Lo carries heavy buckets of water, Yuna suddenly calls his name. She managed to escape her prison. Again, it is too easy now. After getting caught so many times, breaking out is practically a habit. She begs him to run away, but Lo worries about her grandmother's anger. Yuna refuses to listen. She has something incredible to show him. They slip through a gap in the fence, into the dark woods. For the first time, Lo actually sees it, the vast, open world. It is massive, unbelievably huge. Yuna asks if he knows the rules out here. She explains that based on a stolen book, there is a strict system. A system of rankings. It rules absolutely everything in the outside world. Adventurers, couriers, doctors, even musicians all have their own specific tier. Anyone who lands on these massive lists is officially called a ranker. Even weapons, food, and strength are graded, forcing people to constantly compete. Lo finally understands the outside world has its own strict rules. That is when Yuna reveals her greatest dream. She wants to be an adventurer. She wants to travel, fight strong rivals, and become a legendary warrior. Her path is set, but Lo insists he cannot leave the village behind. Yuna begs him to join her, but the boy is completely lost. To convince him, she brings up a memory from when they were 5. A giant, monstrous bird had attacked her, and Lo saved her life. He did it using only a wooden club he barely even remembers. But Yuna insists it happened. She knew then that he possessed incredible power. Even if he seems spacey, when he actually tries, he is unmatched. She believes he will shine much brighter out in the open world. That is why she wants him with her, but Lo refuses yet again. He loves his home too much to ever walk away from it. Fine, she will go alone, warning him he might stay trapped forever. Looking back years later, adult Lo realized he never believed she would leave. But she did. He stood there, alone with his thoughts. As he finally turned to head back, the sky suddenly shifted. Floating high above him was a massive, mysterious island in the clouds. Suddenly, it unleashed a devastating beam of light directly in front of him. Then it vanished. Terrified, he ran back home, sensing an absolute nightmare. But his village was gone, completely erased from the map. His grandmother and Yuna had vanished without a trace. In that exact moment, he recalled the words Yuna and the other villagers always told him. They said he was never alone, hugging him. Family forever, they promised. Devastated, Lo collapsed. He began sobbing helplessly on the dirt. Just then, a grieving warrior spoke up, deeply regretting his late arrival. He arrived too late yet again. The man approached, asking if the boy was from Tori village, noting how brutal this whole ordeal must be. Helping Lo to his feet, the warrior revealed the island was already gone. Panicked, Lo fired off question after question, but the warrior cut him off. He handed Lo a small slip of paper with a map location, telling him to forget this village and head there instead. When Lo demanded real answers, the warrior snapped, the entire village is gone, forget the past. This is your only option, he warned, or you will end up dead too. But wait, the warning had the exact opposite effect on the boy. Lo resolved to become stronger than absolutely anyone else on Earth. He remembered how, as a child, his parents perished in a sudden landslide. Left alone, only the kind villagers, especially Yuna, saved him. They never ignored a person in pain. They were good people, and because of that warmth, he refused to move on. Furious, Lo swore he would reach that flying island and rescue every single one of them, whatever the cost. Suddenly, Lo erupted with a staggering wave of energy, leaving the warrior speechless. This raw force is prana, the powerful mental energy tied to living beings. It is a sleeping strength within everyone, though only a gifted few unlock it. True prodigies command it consciously. Normally, prana remains colorless and invisible, but massive reserves make it flare into sight. Certain rare races even wield specialized versions. The warrior suddenly realized this boy was the target from Babel he was ordered to protect, but seeing this potential, he figured the kid would break through his limits soon enough anyway, so he tossed his own blade to Lo, issuing a harsh challenge to reach that island. The kid had to prove his mettle first. He promised that with real potential, he would train the boy himself. Drawing a backup sword, he dared Lo to attack with lethal intent. Lo lunged forward, wild green prana exploding around him as he swung. As a novice, his stance was terrible. Yet the sheer pressure behind the strike was absolutely suffocating. Waves of raw, ridiculous energy rolled off him. Talk about an absolute prodigy. The warrior realized this kid was a monster, an absolute beast. His strength was so overwhelming that their brief clash tore up the solid earth. After they clashed, the man explained that floating land is the island of the gods. Usually, it drifts high above the vast oceans. It rarely shows itself, existing solely to wipe out entire civilizations. The warrior was trying to prevent this genocide, sharing a vital theory. Those caught in the light might still be alive on that island. Lo immediately asked if he would have been taken if he touched it. The warrior cautioned that it was only a guess, but if true, the villagers might still live, though what is happening to them remains unknown. To get there, he explained that a direct path existed, the adventure rankings. Lo had to reach the top 10 because only those elite rankers got the chance to explore and investigate uncharted, dangerous territories. Adal explained that of all the different leaderboards, this one had the most Competitors and the guys at the top were absolute monsters. To reach the Island of the Gods, the absolute most hazardous zone in the world, Lo would need to break into the top 10. The veteran knight asked if he really wanted to go, since almost nobody ever returned from that place alive. Without hesitation, Lo said yes. Adal decided training had to start right away, personally promising that he would teach the boy swordsmanship for a whole year. After that, he would have to build on that foundation and climb the ladder himself. Then the mentor formally introduced himself as Adal, the number one warrior in the knight rankings. Lo shook hands with humanity's absolute strongest. Adal warned he would not go easy on him, especially since Lo was the only person who had ever managed to cut his chest and leave a permanent scar. The training that followed was absolutely brutal. Blisters on his hands burst, muscles tore, bones cracked, he bled from every single pore. From that day on, Adal never mentioned the island of the gods, leaving the boy to figure out the path on his own. This silence only made Lo believe even more that his people were still alive. Clinging to that hope, he pushed through his daily hell, always wondering why the entire village had vanished into thin air. To find the truth, he had to conquer the rankings. Exactly 1 year later, after relentless, agonizing training, he felt ready. Lo remembered Yuna's old words about her dream of becoming a ranked adventurer, the girl who longed for the outside world was gone, and he never thought he'd go out first. On this journey, now he carried her dream with him, having grown so much as the strongest knight's disciple. His journey was finally beginning. His ultimate path to the island of the gods had officially started. Meanwhile, over in the capital city of Trakista, inside the Kingdom of Valor, an assistant wakes up an appraiser named Luke. He had been up all night reviewing the leaderboard again. She scolds him, telling him to care for his health. After all, unlike her simple desk work, his job was to literally determine people's rankings. These appraisers get dispatched all over the globe to analyze the combat skills of elite rankers. They must possess incredible knowledge and unbiased judgment to properly assess everyone's worth through brutal tests. Let me tell you, this job is easily one of the most demanding positions, reserved strictly for the handpicked. Despite his talents, Luke is currently stuck at the very bottom rank, meaning he has to work tirelessly to reach his personal goals. He knows the absolute fastest shortcut to success is securing an exclusive contract with a top-tier warrior, but he still hasn't found anyone worthy of his exclusive dedication. He claims he's not picky, but honestly, he finds the current batch of rankers incredibly boring. Things are getting fiercer, but the top spots in the rankings are completely locked. As a ranking fanatic, Luke believes true value comes from constant updates. That is why he is searching for a rising star to shake things up. His assistant points out a promising rookie right in their view. They are watching the exam room, hosting the test for the 3rd time this year. This is the official registration exam for the Adventurer ranking system. Candidate numbers surged after the Azaban Forest was marked as highly dangerous. That classification happened just 2 months ago, bringing a wave of strong contenders. She spots some impressive talents, including Owl Darkies from the Mercenary Board. Though his rank is low, he leads the notorious Red Wolf group. Another standout is Ed Markman, a young prodigy from the Archer rankings. Markman legacy is famous, with his father previously holding rank 2. His older brother is currently sitting in 7th place. Rumors say young Ed can shoot arrows at double-digit speeds already. There are other strong-looking applicants here, including a trade ranker and also a sailor. As a seasoned evaluator, Luke recognizes their potential. He easily spots their talent and knows the adventurer exam is crucial. This ranking has grown vital, with so many people rushing to register. Everyone is eager, especially with danger zones like the Azaban Forest. Suddenly, the ringing of a registration bell cuts their quiet conversation short. Looking over, the assistant notices Lo signing up for his rank. She uses this moment to explain how the entire system works. The evaluation department sends official evaluators all over the country. They validate achievements, and though updates can be done anywhere, your very first registration must happen at an official government agency. With his mind made up, our protagonist walks up to take the exam. He pays the fee, fills out his papers, and waits inside. After getting his registration number, he shocks both Luke and the receptionist. This clueless guy has absolutely no idea what the evaluation department is. Shrugging it off, Luke assists his secretary with the initial exam preparations. They quickly handle the paperwork, and soon the adventurer registration test begins. This rigorous test features a written exam, a practical trial, and a surprise. Your final cumulative score decides if you pass, so do not despair. Even if you completely fail one portion, a top score elsewhere can save you. Because of this lenient scoring system, they are told to never give up. With that explained, the anxious candidates finally start the written test. Material is incredibly complex and covers a ridiculously wide range of subjects. It makes things difficult for everyone, but 2 hours later, time is up. The assistant ends the test and announces the practical starts in 2 hours. While the applicants take a breather, she gathers the massive pile of tests. She asks Luke to help her grade them, but her expression suddenly goes dark. She picks up our protagonist's paper and realizes he missed every single question. Yes, a total 0. Meanwhile, Luke is highly annoyed by these country bumpkins. He hates grading their awful papers, but soon those 2 hours are up. The practical test kicks off next, turning into a massive treasure hunt challenge. Candidates must turn in items listed on their forms, with each carrying specific points. Naturally, everyone is urged to hunt down high-value targets to rack up big scores. No fighting allowed. Direct combat against other applicants is strictly forbidden. Because each person specializes in finding different loot, the exam finally starts. Everyone charges straight into the deep forest. Watching from afar, Luke and his secretary estimate that only half will actually pass. Still, their coordinated movements suggest this year's batch is far better prepared. But nobody truly stands out to Luke until their quiet conversation is interrupted by an unexpected arrival. A young candidate emerges carrying a rare chunk of regal ore as the first returnee. He stops, completely satisfied. The young boy decides to quit right there. He figures that single ore earns enough points, but they warn him to keep going. He must keep going for a better rank. He looks incredibly annoyed, having fully expected that he would be the very first one back. He presents a rare fluid feather, which scores him 180 points. A nearby mercenary scoffs, mocking him for getting cocky over a mere bird feather. The proud kid snaps back, bragging that these ultra-fast birds fly at 500 kilometers per hour. They are practically invisible to the naked eye, sparking a completely pointless rivalry. The two launch into a furious argument, fueled entirely by their petty pride and massive, inflated egos. Their childish bickering is instantly cut short when our main character finally appears. Dead bare, he slowly drags the massive beast, leaving everyone speechless. He dragged the entire carcass because he had absolutely no idea how to extract its gallbladder. That specific organ is worth 300 points, leaving the examiners completely stunned. No one can believe he slaughtered a massive red bear alone. Luke steps up, demanding to know how. How did he recognize a red bear after failing the written exam so miserably? The boy shrugs, explaining these beasts frequently wander near his village. He is highly familiar with them, and other nearby candidates who witnessed his fight quickly chime in. They verify his claim, though they admit they missed the actual details of the clash. He simply drew his blade, and in one single, blinding instant, the massive red bear collapsed. 1 hour passes, the candidates gather deep in the underground training center. Stepping forward for the final stage, Luke loudly asks the group who adventurers should fear most. He quickly answers his own question. The absolute biggest threats are beasts and other humans. After all, their missions lead them into untamed wilderness. They chart wild lands and desolate ruins where bandits and pirates rule the shadows. Consequently, this crucial final test is a mock battle where they must fight one another. Candidates must clash with each other, though Luke urges them to stay calm. The match is purely to evaluate their skills, and the rules were kept completely secret. Until now, preventing any of them from cheating on this practical exam. Immediately, a massive brute provokes the mercenary, claiming he only picked up a simple rock. He sneers that mercenaries are nothing but loudmouth bullies and aggressively swings his blade. But the mercenary effortlessly grabs his sword, striking him hard with a brutal pommel hit. Out cold, the single, brutal blow ends it, and the secretary validates the victory. After all, challenging a terrifying, third-class monster like him would be a completely stupid move. With the crowd silenced, Luke steps forward to propose a special match. The female examiner quickly approves. After a few quick matches, she makes an announcement. It is match number 8. Eddie, the legendary archer who hunted the giant bird, and the mercenary team up to fight our rookie protagonist. This formidable mercenary and the archer feel totally underestimated by Luke, but the evaluator insists. His eyes never lie, this mysterious rookie is an absolute monster. The two warriors step right in front of the hero. The mercenary introduces himself as Owl Darcis, leader of the Red Wolf mercenaries. Last year, they made a massive name for themselves by completely wiping the notorious Camera Mafia off the underworld rankings. Rumors claim this young leader single-handedly crushed 7 top executives and their big boss. The younger kid, on the other hand, is Eddie Markman, the highly gifted heir to the prestigious Markman archer clan, trained since early childhood by his own father. Once the number 2 ranked archer, Eddie was officially registered in the global rankings at just 5 years old as a genius prodigy. Now these two seasoned fighters stand against a mysterious but insanely powerful opponent. As soon as the match starts, Markman lets an arrow fly, but our hero casually dodges it and charges right at Owl Darcis, instantly locking swords. The two exchange deadly blows at blinding speeds, defending with unreal skill so fast that the other contenders cannot even follow the action. Then, our hero manages to forcefully push Owl Darcis' arm back, breaking his guard to strike his exposed chest. Grabbing the perfect opening, Eddie snipes another lethal arrow directly at him. Incredibly, the young protagonist slices the speeding arrow clean out of the air with his sword, shutting down the attack. Seriously, slicing a sniper's arrow midair. Everyone is stunned. Ever seen this guy before? But they are all convinced he must be a top-ranked elite knight. Right then, our young hero learns exactly how his opponents rank in. Eddie is rank 402 among archers, and Owl is number 753 among mercenaries. Hearing this, our hero says if he defeats them, he will finally secure a 3-digit rank. Suddenly, he unleashes a ridiculously massive aura that instantly floods the entire dueling hall. Luke notices that it's prana, and it is so dense you can actually see the colored energy with the naked eye. Markman tries to play it cool, shouting that general rankings are not everything, and that in the precision-focused sniper rankings, he is currently sitting in the 78th position. But right as he finishes talking and prepares to shoot, he simply drops to the cold floor, completely unconscious. Owl Darcis is in absolute shock since not even registering the lightning-fast strike that took his partner down. Then, the swordsman begins walking slowly toward him, cloaked in chilling green prana. Suddenly, our hero vanishes entirely, reappearing right behind him, feeling the icy edge of the steel pressed against his neck. Owl Darcis immediately surrenders, claiming he has a shift later and does not want to get knocked out like Eddie. He openly admits our protagonist is a complete monster, desperately wondering who this kid really is. Everyone watching is speechless as he easily crushed 2 high-ranking combatants solo. Officially, the announcer declares that candidate number 3 is the winner. Instantly, Luke dashes over to his system terminal, pulling up the highly restricted examiner database. He quickly locates the official profile of 17-year-old Lo Chalai and sees that he has absolutely no history. This lines perfectly with his claim of coming from a tiny, isolated village, confirming that he is not a fugitive or part of any dangerous cult. Luke feels like he just struck gold, discovering a massive hidden gem. He immediately runs off to offer the kid his. He offered his services as an exclusive appraiser, asking Lo to pair up, but he quickly realized a bunch of other appraisers had the exact same idea. They were trying to persuade the swordsman. For a second, Luke figured he was way too late and that he should have researched the guy's background before pitching his offer. To his surprise, our hero did not even know what an exclusive appraiser was, so Luke stepped right up to explain. He clarified that an exclusive appraiser is someone dedicated to one specific ranker, keeping their rank updated on the regular. Normally, adventurers have to wait for the appraisal department to send an official. But with an exclusive appraiser, the update happens right on the spot. Absolutely anywhere. This perk is highly valued by adventurers who are constantly traveling, plus exclusive appraisers always have the freshest, most up-to-date info, so if Lo wanted to climb those ranks fast, hiring one was his best bet. Best way to go. Hearing this pitch, our protagonist laid down just one condition for accepting their help. He wanted to know if any appraiser here could actually get him into the top 10 of the adventurer ranking. Hearing that, the others backed right off, explaining that pure swordsmanship alone is not enough to get that far. Hearing this, our hero simply turned around and started walking But Luke ran after him, totally desperate, calling out to Lo, the young appraiser. Asked why on earth he wanted to reach the top 10 of this specific ranking so badly. Our hero replied that it was none of his business, but Luke absolutely refused to back down. He boldly declared he would become his exclusive appraiser and make that goal happen. His goal, Lo, however, immediately refused, saying he did not want to put a kid in danger. Luke retorted that before being a kid, he was a fully certified appraiser. Even so, Lo stood his ground, explaining he had zero intention of hiring anyone. Because he did not want to drag more people into his heavy mission. That is when Luke yelled out that he also had a goal of his own, a mission he wanted to finish even if it cost him his life, and that was exactly why he wanted to team up with Lo. The sheer fire in the boy's words made the swordsman remember his own drive. From a year ago, back when he resolved to head to that island and save everyone. Understanding the boy's fierce determination, he finally yielded, admitting he also had something incredibly important to finish. Luke then formally introduced himself and promised he would guide him straight to the absolute peak of the rankings. Convinced, Lo shook his hand, sealing their new partnership. Soon after, they headed to a high-end room that Luke had already booked for them to use as a base. For the next few days, our hero praised the kid's setup, and Luke smugly replied that scoring a place like this was nothing. The young appraiser then declared that he would prove his worth within a single week. Soon, Lo would be begging him to stay on permanently. Still, Luke quickly noticed that although Lo was a monstrous fighter, he seemed totally clueless when he was out of combat. Little while later, the results dropped. Lo's brand new rank was position 27-28. Luke congratulated him on passing the exam, noting that breaking into the 2000s was already a solid start. Lo, however, was visibly disappointed as he expected to rank in the triple digits. After all, he had just crushed 2 opponents who were sitting at that tier. Luke explained that the official adventurer list had way more people, making the competition brutal. He pointed out that no matter how strong someone is, their starting rank has a limit, but Luke reveals that Lo has other impressive rankings, like 58th place in sword speed. To the appraisal department, this specific category represents his true talent. Luke continues, explaining that even the 2 men Lo faced also held rankings in various other areas. Take old arcs, for example. He is ranked for cleaning, info gathering, and being a boss. Meanwhile, Eddie Markman ranks high in sniping, scouting, and growing mushrooms. Having multiple rankings makes it way easier to secure jobs, which is why Luke suggests registering for more, but Lo is not interested. He is not looking for work. Luke instantly realizes what Lo wants. His only goal is to reach the top 10 as fast as possible to get to the island of the gods. That is the ultimate privilege of the top tier. This privilege is strictly for the top 10 adventurers. Lo offers a deal. He will share his reasons after the trial period if Luke shares his too. It is a fair trade. Then Luke reveals a secret that is hard to explain. It is hard to explain to a newcomer, but he is investigating the dark side of these rankings. Curious, he asks where Lo obtained such crazy strength. That level of swordsmanship is not something anyone can master overnight. Lo explains that 1 year ago, he became the disciple of a knight. His master is Adal. Luke is shocked. Adal is the world's #1 knight. Lo confirms the apprenticeship, though it only lasted for 1 short year. To Luke, this news is an absolute bombshell. Adal is famous for refusing to teach his legendary sword skills to anyone. He has rejected countless desperate requests from hopeful warriors over the years. Everyone believes Adal is waiting to pass his skills to the highest-ranking knight of the next generation. Because of this, countless knights are desperately pushing their limits just to train under him. Luke points out that everyone would lose their minds if they knew that Lo inherited Adal's secret style. Lo admits he never suspected was actually the strongest man alive, just like the old man always claimed. Luke clarifies that being #1 literally means being the absolute best. But wait, this is where it gets crazy. He actually managed to defeat Adal in a sword fight once. The legend admitted that Lo was the first person to ever land a hit on him. Luke is completely floored hearing these bombshells delivered with a totally deadpan face. Luke checks the database, but since the name actually has never appeared before, asks if it is a fake alias. Lo explains he lacks a last name due to cultural differences. Adal told him to adopt the last name Chili So He could reach the island of the gods, warning him of the extreme risks. But if he succeeds, some crucial answers will naturally come. Lo notes that Chili is not a fake disguise, but his dear family's name. Luke finishes up his assessor duties for the day and removes his hat. At that moment, Lo finally realizes Luke is actually a woman. She gets annoyed that he did not notice sooner, but Lo quickly apologizes. Pleased with his reaction, Luke invites him out for coffee, marking the first steps of a long journey together. With their partnership locked in, they came up with a solid strategy for Lo to climb into the top 10 rankings. To rise through those high ranks, he needed major achievements. While expanding his own territory and clearing land was the standard path, Luke advised starting with simpler missions. She explained that plenty of people needed an adventurer's muscle for basic gathering and investigation work, and these jobs paid decent rewards, making them perfect for beginners. He could pick up tasks through the assessment department or the local guild. To make things easier, she pulled out a rank cell, a handy device for tracking quests. Luke promised him unlimited access if he agreed to make her his exclusive assessor. Lo weighed the option before asking if there was a quest that could shoot his rank straight to the top in one go. Luke then pulled up the department's absolute hardest quests, which clearly showed exactly how much they would boost his standing. Without hesitating, Lo picked the first one on the list. Wait, a 6-skull difficulty quest inside a level 7 danger zone. Recovering treasure from the sunken temple of Luciana. The assessor was dead serious, telling him that at his current level, he stood zero chance in that brutal dungeon, urging him to trust her seasoned eyes. She insisted that the quest was suicidal, and he would end up dead before making any real progress. But looking back at her with absolute seriousness, our hero made his stance clear. He had to try because his ultimate destination, the island of the gods, was the absolute deadliest zone. If he chickened out now, he would never make it there. Seeing that Lo was far more stubborn than she ever anticipated, Luke tried to come up with a different way to change his mind. Right then, a man in a sharp suit approached them, asking if there was some kind of trouble. Luke recognized him instantly, introducing him as Lud Broward. Lud was an absolute powerhouse adventurer, holding 11th place in the brutal general rankings. Lo already knew this guy was a beast, exactly as Adal warned. As an elite hunter, if he climbed just one more spot, he could finally challenge the terrifying island of the gods. Seeing her chance, Luke asked Lud to help manage this stubborn rookie, but instead of talking, they decided a duel was needed. Heading straight for the arena, once there, the 11th-ranked adventurer grabbed a cheap training weapon that seemed way too light for someone of his stature. Lo introduced himself respectfully, but Lud cut him off short. In their line of work, nobody gives a damn about polite formalities. Lud noted that Luke had recently updated his stats. Besides her incredible knowledge, she possessed a rare obsession with perfect rankings, a drive that was highly unusual for basic evaluators. Since she asked him directly, he was ready to teach this arrogant kid a harsh lesson. This was going to be brutal. Our hero could feel Lud's raw power. He hesitated to advance, sensing he would get skewered instantly by that spear. From the sidelines, Luke hoped this was Lo's chance to finally realize how massive the world truly was, but the boy already understood that reality. He remembered his home village being stolen by that cursed island. With his drive refueled, rank 27-28 lunged straight at rank 11, slashing his sword as Lud blocked with his. He swings a makeshift spear, unleashing a massive aura slash. But his opponent easily dodges. Lud notices how the boy channels pure prana straight into his sword for a single explosive strike. He also uses that same power in his limbs to boost his speed. This style belongs to the legendary Sword Saint, a secret technique strictly guarded among true successors. Lud cannot believe a mere kid has actually mastered it. Shaking off his shock, Lud refocuses just in time to see the hero strike from behind. Lo aims for his back, but Lud easily dodges by simply flinging his spear backward. Calmly, the veteran adventurer starts moving and attacking simultaneously, noting that Lo has an incredibly massive pool of prana. Despite his young age, as they clash at high speed in an intense storm of energy, the rank 11 adventurer demands to know Lo's race. Lo is totally confused. Lud insists that this massive prana flow is not something you can just train over time. If he must, he will beat the answer out of him. Realizing the kid uses Enchantments 2, Laud plants his spear in the dirt and starts chanting. The furious horse of the crags crosses mountains, gasping for breath. The sunlight makes the sacred tree bloom once more. Turbulent waters meet, shattering all peace. Leaping high, he unleashes the Wind Tribe's ancient enchantment, warning Lo that he will die if he does not defend himself. Spiritual spears manifest in the air and fly straight toward our hero. Lo blocks with his sword, but his opponent warns him that a regular blade cannot block this magic. Our hero manages to dodge most attacks, but takes several brutal hits to the stomach. He remembers Adal warning him his prana control is still pretty raw. But with practice, he would master the secret skills step by step. Right now, he remembers the very first basic move, the shimmering blade. Copying the rank one night stance, our hero unleashes an incredibly fast, powerful gale of prana at his enemy, but Laud simply spins his spear, completely neutralizing the blow. Capitalizing on the opening, Lo lunges forward with a low slash, a cut so incredibly fast it is basically invisible. Still, Laud manages to dodge and counter, throwing an energy spear. That sends the boy flying. Laud admits the kid has impressive talent, but the power gap between them is just too massive. Snapping his fingers, Laud summons thousands of glowing golden spears right out of thin air, warning Lo never to underestimate the power of adventure rankings, and fires a devastating attack. Seriously, how can he possibly survive this? Staring up at the raining spears, our hero feels completely defeated. As he lies beaten on the ground, the winner is officially declared, Laud Broward. Luke comments that Lo now understands the brutal gap in power between them. Laud then asks if she really believed the kid could win. Until the very end, she admits she thought it was possible, especially since he is Adal's disciple. Laud then reveals that the moment he saw that high-speed strike, he recognized the legendary sword Saint style, leaving him wondering how this kid could have possibly mastered such an elite technique. That elite swordsmanship was passed down to just a single chosen successor. Over generations, the fact that an ordinary kid like Lo inherited it was deeply shocking. To the knights, it felt like he had stolen. Just think about the massive backlash. Luke knew Lo should probably avoid any conflicts with other knights if he wanted to stay safe. Getting eliminated was a real risk. Sure, acting like a knight might fix things, but that was impossible since he wanted to stay an adventurer. Honestly, Luke's trust in Lo went way beyond that legendary sword Saint style. He claimed he landed a hit, and she believed him. Honestly, Lud thought a strike like that was absolutely impossible for him right now, but Luke, despite her doubts, refused to rule out the possibility. She knew Lo was honest. Hearing this, Lud agreed that made perfect sense. After all, along with that shocking style, his glowing prana was incredibly impressive. Luke then added that Lo also possessed unique enchantments. Lud concluded that if the boy had used them, he could have actually won. Meanwhile, a sudden memory of the past flashed in Lo's mind. A young woman was singing softly at home when an angry old woman appeared, screaming about some poem and claiming it was all his fault they were trapped. The younger woman apologized to Lo. Just then, he jolted awake in an unfamiliar hospital bed. Thoroughly confused by these vivid dreams, Luke explained that he was resting inside the evaluation infirmary. He had been out cold for hours. He was mentally exhausted, totally drained. Lo still looked dazed. Lo didn't fully understand, so Luke asked if he was pushing himself way too hard, thinking about his relentless schedule. The young warrior admitted she was right. Luke then told him something important was coming. She asked if he knew what enchantments were, but he shook his head, so she explained they are a special way to control prana. Only a handful of rare races can do it naturally, though top-tier adventurers can also master it. Lo asked if Lud was one of those elites. Luke nodded, explaining that Lud is a fierce warrior from the Broward tribe, known for hunting in deep, dangerous swamps. Because their combat secrets are spoken through rhythmic poems, they became known as enchantments, and since it relies on genetics, adults can almost never learn them from scratch. Lud's special power deeply impressed the young man, but then Luke dropped a real bombshell. Lo had those same enchantments dormant inside him. When asked if he realized what that meant, he guessed it was simply a decent boost to help him rank up. Smiling, Luke corrected him. He had the potential to reach the absolute top tier, which is why she handpicked a special mission suited to his current level. The task was an investigation deep in the dangerous Azaban forest. Officially, it was a basic nature survey, but this was no simple animal study. In fact, several people had vanished in those woods recently, and every adventurer sent to investigate had completely disappeared. Luke explained that at first, only low-ranking adventurers were vanishing into thin air. But the situation quickly took a turn for the worse when even an adventurer ranked at position 800 vanished without a trace. She revealed that if Louis could uncover the cause of these disappearances, he could jump 200 spots in the rankings instantly, but the risk was massive. Without any hesitation, Louis accepted the dangerous mission. Luke then made it clear she only recommended him because she truly believed in him. She registered the quest in the system and gave him an urgent warning about the Azaban forest. It houses protected creatures and many restricted zones. Luke assured him that with her guiding him, everything should go smoothly, but they had to be careful. Louis then asked her what would happen if he broke the rules. She replied that his rank would drop instantly. Skill doesn't save you from rules. Destroy the forest, and your reputation goes down the drain. Trust is everything. Now she was absolutely thrilled. Declared that this mission was the start of a whole new chapter in their journey, their first major step to climb the rankings. Promising they would give it their all as a team, she convinced him to set off. Together, they headed into the Azaban forest. Meanwhile, in a deep corner of the same woods, a killer finished off another victim. He muttered that the evaluation department never cared about weaklings like him. To him, trying to climb the ranks the normal way was nothing but foolish. The mysterious man then approached a Unihacer, a beast with a rare horn. Just one horn from this beast would instantly boost his status straight into the 3-digit ranks. He knew that brute force alone was not enough. The whole system was built on injustice anyway. The killer was so cruel, ranked 7th among the smugglers. Looking around the forest, he was not about to abandon this rich hunting ground. His goal was clear: reach the top 100. Next on his hit list, Dalkin Iris, ranked 672. When Louis reached the forest gates, a knight checked his rank. Spotting number 2728, once allowed in, Louis asked how many people were actually ranked. The guard told him that there were about 30,000, though only 20,000 were active. She noted that his combat stats did not match his low rank. Often, a warrior's main rank differs wildly from their specialized skills. Someone with a 4-digit rank might be 3-digit in another area. The guard added that the higher your overall adventure level is, the higher your other rankings will naturally be. Louis quietly thought about this, remembering his own swordsmanship rank was already in the 2-digit range. He was already far stronger than anyone in the exam. But he wanted to get even stronger. That single obsession entirely consumed him. Just then, Luke declared that their dangerous hunt in the forest begins now. They entered Azaban Forest, Danger Zone 48. Right away, Louis felt an unsettling chill. In an instant, the real danger was clear. This place held a dark vibe only experienced adventurers could ever pick up on. Normal folks would walk right past without noticing a thing, which is why threat levels exist. Luke explained that this forest was recently added to that list of danger zones. A massive outbreak of demonic beasts completely overran the woods 2 months ago. Grotesque monsters suddenly burst out of nowhere. Luke yelled that it was now up to Louis to protect her from these beasts. With zero hesitation, he unleashed a slash and tore through them. He bounded skyward, grabbed a giant bird by its beak, and slammed it to the ground. Next, he unleashed a massive gale slash with his green prana, wiping out everyone instantly. He remembered Adal, the master who taught him this powerful gale technique. Our protagonist had learned a few secret arts, but mastery was still far away. But he felt that maybe, just maybe, he could actually pull off the second style right now. Suddenly, a massive blood orc, one of the most dangerous ranked threats, appeared right before them. Louis decided this was the perfect opportunity to test his limits. He would attempt to execute his master's legendary second style right here. He unleashed a massive surge of prana instantly. He struck the massive blood orc with a fierce cross-shaped slash. The devastating blow hit its target perfectly, but had absolutely zero effect on the massive creature. It prepared to strike back. Louis panicked instantly. He bolted, screaming that his ultimate attack had failed completely. This left Luke utterly dumbfounded, and honestly, can you even blame her? Hightailing it to save their skins, they suddenly found themselves at a cliff edge. Without a single second to think, Louis grabbed Luke and leaped straight off the cliff. They fell rapidly, but somehow managed to land safely without any major injuries. Even so, a terrified Luke immediately started yelling at him. She complained that he should have warned her before doing something so reckless. Louis calmly explained his crazy master always trained him that way, making it a habit. Finally, they managed to reach the silent, overgrown center of the mysterious Azaban forest. This was the exact target zone they needed to investigate. Luke noted that ever since the Azaban forest was ranked, she had charted 80%. The remaining 20% was a deadly nest of monsters, completely untouched. He stared in awe at the glowing magical plants. Louis admitted he had never seen anything like this before. In that very moment, the true meaning of what it means to be an adventurer clicked. He remembered his sister Yuna's lifelong dream of exploring this vast and magical world. Suddenly, Louis noticed a subtle movement and grabbed his sword. But Luke stopped him, pointing out that it was injured. She pondered exactly how to approach the majestic animal without causing it any further panic. It was a rare royal horn, ranked 4th among endangered species. Seeing its deep, painful wounds, Luke decided she simply had to help the animal. She had learned basic first aid to treat Louis in the past. Especially after those times Loa beat him to a pulp, they definitely needed to camp. As an evaluator, she absolutely refused to abandon a helpless creature. Caring for this majestic royal horn was a vital part of her ecological research anyway. Plus, they would set up a temporary camp here for the night. Luke warns Lo not to get the wrong idea, as if she preferred the beast over him. So the two of them set up camp in the forest to finally get some rest. While Luke slept near the warm campfire, Lo took his chance to practice. He wanted to push his prana sword skills further, aiming to master his blade. Lo unleashes his half-lotus technique against a nearby tree, sending a massive blast of energy forward. Yet the trunk remains completely unmarked. Frustrated, he collapses onto the forest floor. Exhausted, he realizes he is getting nowhere. At this rate, reaching the legendary Island of the Gods would always remain an impossible dream. He needed to grow stronger, remembering Lord Broward's cryptic words about his inner enchantments. Lo meditates silently, trying to understand his own power. He finally wakes up the very next morning as bright sunlight hits his closed eyes. Luke is already awake, disturbed by the wild beast thrashing in the dark. The young royal horn creature is incredibly agitated, growling at some unseen threat in the distance. Fortunately, the majestic creature is recovering well from its deep wounds. Thanks to Luke's careful treatment, the baby beast heals quite quickly. She explains that as a baby, it should normally bond and get attached to nearby people. Instead, it is terrified, confirming her fears that someone intentionally harmed the poor thing. She points out the fractured horn, showing Lo clear evidence of a brutal attack. This was definitely the work of ruthless poachers, and Luke explains the dark truth behind it. The creature's horn is highly valued as a miraculous cure-all on the market. Because of this, they are hunted relentlessly, which eventually made them an extremely rare species. Even with strict bans in place, the high demand never disappears. Poachers hunt them in secret, selling the horns as legendary unicorn pieces on the black market. Suddenly, the panicked beast lunges at Luke, but Lo moves instantly. He blocks the incoming horn with his sword, shielding her from harm. Scared off, the creature bolts, and Luke immediately runs after it. She is deeply worried because the baby creature is still not 100% recovered. Actually, finding a royal horn in the Azaban forest is completely unheard of till now. Lo immediately decides to chase after the beast. After all, securing an exotic monster would boost their adventure ranking significantly. Luke advises him to tail it quietly as they move through the area. The extremely fast creature quickly vanishes from sight, but Lo keeps tracking its fresh footprints. He pushes deep through the thick foliage when a sudden strike stops him cold. An aggressive hunter suddenly steps out of the shadows, laughing at what he calls lucky day. Lo blocks the lethal swing, forcing a tense, head-on sword clash. Sparking steel rings through the quiet woods as they trade heavy blows. Our hero unleashes a concentrated prana strike, nearly taking the stunned enemy's head completely off. Staring at the unique color of that energy, the attacker freezes in sheer shock. He instantly drops his weapon, raising his hands in absolute surrender. Hearing the very familiar voice, Lo looks closely and spots a young archer on a nearby branch. It is none other than Eddie and Owl, his his old academy rivals. The scene shifts to the very next day, right during the adventure ranking registration process. The receptionist asks Lo which career path he wants to register. Lo confidently confirms his choice to walk the adventurer's path. Eddie is standing nearby to pick up a quest, bringing the two rivals face to face once again. The two men stand face to face, locking eyes in a tense, silent waiting game. Ed finally breaks the heavy silence, asking if Lo found any clues. He wants to know about the mysterious swordsman who beat them. Lo nods. He discovered something, but the details are still pretty vague. Believe it or not, that monster of a swordsman did not even have a rank. Ed admits that despite how it looks, people used to call him an absolute prodigy. He was highly respected in the archery world, so this defeat really stung. Getting crushed by an unranked rookie destroyed his pride. Meanwhile, Captain Owl is back with his mercenary band, receiving a warm, loud welcome from everyone. He announces he registered as an adventurer, and everyone celebrates. The crew starts joking that he probably crushed the competition and dominated the trials. But Owl cuts the laughter short, quietly admitting he actually lost his match. His men laugh it off, assuming their captain simply held back to be nice. There is no way a top 3-digit mercenary could lose to a nobody. A top veteran losing to an amateur is impossible, but right then. In a burst of pure rage, boom, Owl smashes a heavy wooden table to splinters. He is absolutely livid that Lo did not even bother to look at him. The disrespect makes him feel like nothing more than a stepping stone, so he yells that they will triple their daily training, starting tomorrow morning. The entire guild is stunned. One girl nervously mentions they have missions to run. But Owl barks back that taking easy quests is no longer enough for them. He realizes the world is vast, and it is time to push his limits. Later on, Owl meets up with Ed and confesses his pride is completely shot. That humiliating battle with Lo really messed him up. He never cared about ranks. But there is no way he is letting some rookie look down on him. Both of them are high-ranked pros elsewhere, so this defeat absolutely crushed them. Their massive egos are bruised, so they pull up their profile screens. Ed is ranked 6725, Owl is 631. Get this, the guy who wrecked them, Lo, is ranked 2728. Seeing that huge 4,000 rank gap, they assume catching up will be easy. They are determined to surpass him, so they team up to hunt together. They select a quest in the dangerous Azaban forest to grind some experience. The zone was recently classified as highly hazardous, making it the perfect training ground. That is how they ended up here, bumping straight into Lo. Now back to now. Lo tells them they will catch up later and immediately takes off sprinting. He sheathes his blade on the move, warning them that a royal horn is hurt. Ed and Owl instantly realize he is trying to rescue the wounded beast. They chase right after him, pushing hard to keep up with his insane speed. As they sprint, the young archer explains how to navigate this dense woodland. You have to utilize the rough terrain to propel yourself forward and gain momentum. Jumping off the scattered rocks gives you a massive burst of acceleration. Lo watches the trick, instantly copies it, and shoots forward like a rocket. Suddenly, they spot a massive monster, wrapping its thick tongue around the royal horn. Without a second thought, the two warriors draw their weapons to save it. Lo charges straight into the fray, landing a clean, deadly slice on the beast. Slicing the monster's tongue and injuring it, realizing he can't get close enough for a second. Attack, he prepares for long-range slashes, but Lo quickly changes his mind. Knowing his sweeping attacks would also hit the precious royal horn, instead. He shouts to Ed to create an opening, telling the archer to aim right for the beast's eyes while he charges ahead. Ed complies, and the moment he fires, both arrows strike the beast directly in the eyes. The creature shrieks in absolute agony. Lo immediately calls out for Ed to target the legs. Meanwhile, our hero slides Lo across the dirt, drawing his arm back to build up massive energy. Preparing his sword, he unleashes a devastating slash with his glowing prana enveloping the blade. At that very second, Owl slices a tree trunk, sending it crashing straight down on the monster. The massive timber slams into the giant purple beast, crushing it completely and keeping the royal horn safe. With the fight over, the mercenary captain boasts that he's quite used to bossing subordinates around, which instantly rubs Ed the wrong way. Annoyance aside, they still have to admit that Lo's swordsmanship is pretty incredible. Still, they figure that alone won't get him into the top 10. Just slaying monsters to climb the ranking ladder won't cut it. Lo needs to master skills beyond simple blade work to stand. Out sometime later, Luke finally catches up, offering her apologies for being late and asking what on earth happened. She quickly explains that she mistook them for poachers, but thankfully it was only a simple misunderstanding that got resolved fast. Luke admits she's pretty relieved that Lo didn't just charge in like some lunatic, choosing to resolve things by actually talking. She teasingly threatens to demote them, but quickly laughs it off as a joke. Still, she warns that even if he held back this time, next time she'll drop their rank for real. Hearing that warning, the two boys, who came incredibly close to losing their status, promise to be careful. Intrigued, Ed asks why Lo has an evaluator tagging along, and our hero replies that it's just a faster way to climb the ranks. Owl completely disagrees, viewing it as being closely monitored 24 hours a day. He hates the idea, arguing that it only brings extra chores for Lo, like cleaning duty, and that most of the time they will just force him to risk his life daily. Owl concludes that this is because Lo is being exploited for other people's benefit. Lo then asks why on earth these evaluators want him to grow stronger so fast. Owl replies that it's their ticket to a promotion, since evaluator ranks rise right along with the rankings they update. Basically, adventurers whose levels shoot up quickly are just easy ladders for evaluators to climb. Talk about being used. He warns Lo to be careful, pointing out that Luke is only using him as a stepping stone. Hearing this, Lo has his doubts. He wonders if she is truly capable of using people, since she really doesn't seem like that kind of person. But right then, their chat gets cut short as Luke finishes scanning the area and signals that the coast is clear. Suddenly, the royal horn approaches, rubbing affectionately against her, as if they are suddenly best buddies. However, the giant beast clearly has zero concept of personal space. Ed and Owl find it more terrifying than cute, muttering about how overly aggressive its affection is. Ungrateful, but Luke explains that the creature is only terrified because of how intimidating they both looked, pointing out that Lo radiates a highly terrifying aura, even though he actually did nothing wrong. Luke quickly changes the subject to mention that the dangerous magical beast they just defeated has been causing massive, absolute trouble lately. She reveals they had never encountered this kind of predator before, especially since its natural habitat is cold regions, and no records show it living in the Azaban forest. Because of this mystery, she and Lo came here on special reconnaissance mission. Luke then asks what Ed and Owl are doing here, and Owl replies that they took on a very similar task from their own department. This surprises Luke, who never expected to find missions suited for mercenaries and archers out here. She realizes her high rank must have inspired them to take this risky task just to climb the ladder. So she decides to lift the mood and share some pretty great news with Lo, saying she has something special for him. It turns out his speed ranking just got a massive update. His sword technique was so incredibly fast that she already requested to record the feat in the official rankings. Luke explains that because of his amazing skill, Lo has actually climbed to the 26th spot on the global speed ranking, which combines multiple lists together. Hearing this, he looks genuinely thrilled, knowing he used technique completely invisible to the naked eye, even if ordinary folks might miss it. It might look simple to them, but Lo knows he succeeded by acting on instinct alone. Admiring her talent, he asks if Luke is always this incredible, and she gladly takes the opportunity to boast a little about boosting his rank. At that moment, Lo decides to be completely honest with Ed and Owl, leaving Owl a bit annoyed. The young swordsman admits there is something they really need to know. He is absolutely useless at anything that does not involve his blade. The seasoned warriors suddenly realize this kid has spent his whole life training with a sword. Lo confesses that during the battle, Ed was the one who saved him simply because he does not know how to coordinate with a team during a battle. Owl explains that leading comes naturally to him because as a mercenary captain, he constantly has to come up with clever tactics just to avoid losing his men. He stresses that battle formations, instructions, and positioning are all completely vital for surviving a brutal attack. Owl then asks if Lo wants to learn these tactics, though his sword skills are already incredible. He might not even need the advice, but Lo eagerly insists on learning. He begs them to teach him everything, knowing he needs these skills to survive. The veterans gladly agree, sharing crucial tips on navigating the dangerous forest. By pushing all 5 of his senses to the absolute limit, seeing lows. Incredible focus, Luke feels immensely proud and happy to support his growth. Yet even during this warm moment, Luke feels a lingering dread about the ruthless poachers and that strange demonic beast. She feels something is deeply wrong in the Azaban forest, worrying this task is far too dangerous for their small group. Meanwhile, the two poachers hunting for their escaped beast manage to track down Lowe's group. One of them, Iris, cruelly remarks that their fresh organs will sell for a massive fortune. Even if they cannot handle the demonic monster, she still plans to capture them, warning that anyone stepping into a beast's territory must expect to be torn to pieces. Back with the group, Ed begins his lesson on perception. 5 senses, it is no easy task. He notes that mastering sight, hearing, and even taste during battle requires rigorous training. The forest is perfect ultimate training ground because the sense of plants and wild beasts are incredibly intense. Here, Owl admits he does not really understand, prompting Ed to tease him, saying it is probably tough for a mercenary to recognize anything other than the scent of blood. To prove his point, Ed shows off. He senses every beast surrounding them right now, even while keeping his prana output completely hidden. He explains that prana is a versatile energy that allows someone to concentrate their perception. This instantly sharpens the senses. Eager to try, Lo begins to focus his own energy to read the woods. Suddenly, his power explodes. An overwhelming wave of aura, shocking the entire group with this massive burst of power. His prana expands rapidly, instantly sharpening all 5 of his senses at once. His awareness peaks. He detects absolutely everything nearby, including a rogue hunter hiding in the shadows. Instantly, Lo grips his weapon, gets ready to strike, warning Luke that they are being watched. But just as he warns that the enemy is closing in, then a devastating punch strikes him. The impact is violent. It sends him flying backward through multiple trees. He crashes, knocked out cold by the sheer force. The rogue hunter delivered the blow steps out, complaining loudly about the disgusting prana leaking everywhere. He mocks them. This messy, uncontrolled energy is a beginner mistake. A perfect beacon that allowed him to locate their position. Immediately, the mercenary and the archer draw their weapons, ready to fight. However, Luke stops them, revealing that their opponent is Dalsin Iris, rank 672 in the adventurer rankings. This news leaves everyone frozen in shock. Adventurer holding a 3-digit rank possesses overwhelming power compared to them. Luke reveals he recognizes Dalsin from his infamous past, noting that the man was close to reaching the prestigious 2-digit ranks before committing a crime that ruined his standing. Suddenly, Rosso appears. He remarks on Dalsin Iris's terrifying speed. Dalsin spots the appraiser standing nearby, though he cannot place her face. The appraiser, however, immediately identifies Rosso as the notorious merchant ranked 776. Hearing this, Dalsin remarks that she is highly knowledgeable to know about the Underworld Registry. He explains that this criminal list has a strict hierarchy reflecting the gravity of each offender's crimes. He points to major categories like assassins and master thieves, adding that the top spots often go to those addicted to forbidden substances. Dalsin notes that the crime registry is merely one of several unofficial systems made by everyday people, as this world features unique categories that go far beyond standard guild records. He mentions that reliable high-quality lists are occasionally purchased by government authorities if they remain ethical, while other lists are quietly maintained and updated by dedicated tracking enthusiasts. Suddenly, they spot the legendary unicorn they wanted. Luke quickly steps ahead of Dalsin, blocking him from getting near the royal horn, demanding to know what he is doing with a criminal like Rosso. The adventurer admits he is in it for money. This absolutely shocks Luke. Someone with Dalsin's incredible skill level could easily earn a clean living, but Dalsin explains that money is not his only goal. There are actually 2 reasons for his alliance with Rosso. One is to sell products, and the other is to buy. He mockingly asks the appraiser if she knows that rankings can be bought. This insult makes Luke furious, but Dalsin does not seem to care at all. Annoyed, Owl tries to slash Dalsin with his sword, but the fighter blocks the strike by catching the blade with just his bare fingers. Suddenly, Eddie fires an arrow right at him, shouting that they are here to patrol and a dangerous guy like Dalsin cannot be left running wild. Realizing he must clear this mess, Dalsin gets irritated and begins unleashing a massive wave of his purple prana. His muscles swell with power as he prepares a devastating punch. The mercenary completely freezes in terror, feeling like he is about to die. Talk about a clutch save, Lo suddenly leaps in to block the hit. Unleashing an immense amount of his own prana, the young warrior places his sword directly in front of the attack, blocking the enemy's punch. Both opponents stare each other down, demanding names, but Lo's energy proves to be far superior, quickly overpowering Dalsin. The intense confrontation builds into a massive clash of raw magic, with prana radiating from his entire body. Lo charges forward, forcing the enemy to retreat. Luke quickly asks if Lo is all right, and he nods in confirmation. He then asks if this man is the rogue hunter. The appraiser confirms there is no doubt about it. He is the one hunting the royal horn. Hearing this, Lo unleashes a hurricane skill with his green prana, launching the magic at his foe, but Dalsin blocks the strike by crossing his arms, wrapping them in defensive purple energy. He is highly impressed that a mere kid can wield prana so naturally. Lo quickly realizes his attacks barely even tickle his opponent, who is ridiculously tough. He suddenly recalls a warning from Aldo, telling him to be extremely careful around other prana users. Aldo had explained that Lo was a complete exception. Normally, you must be a master of some discipline, like swordsmanship or weapons, to unlock this power through deep study. Lo recalls that according to Aldo, prana is far more than just energy. It is an absolute obsession. If someone can use it, they are likely a grandmaster of their craft. He remembers a brutal mountain climb with Doug where he struggled, but those words now give him the courage to face this monster. As he braces himself, Luke warns him that Dalsin is ranked 12th in boxing, 48th in beast taming, 19th in grip, and 7th in weightlifting, possessing elite strength. She warns him not to get too close and fight from a distance. Annoyed that his stats were exposed, Dalsin furiously declares he is going to crush that girl first. He then grabs a massive tree, effortlessly ripping it right out of the solid ground. With his prana clutching the trunk with one hand, he braces himself and hurls the massive tree straight at Luke, but Lo moves quickly to protect her, slicing the entire trunk in half with his glowing, ore-infused sword. Luke gets worried. That intense defense, it takes a massive toll. Watching the scene, Old Man Rosso notices the boy has some seriously strange prana. He orders Dalsin and Iris to capture him, promising it will make them rich. Dalsin replies that he will take the kid, assuming he survives this fight. Right then, Eddie fires 2 arrows, but the illegal hunter blocks them with ease. Using a prana-wrapped arm, he mocks them as too weak to even remember. Right then, Captain Owl throws a special smoke bomb. The moment it hits, a massive cloud of thick smoke completely blankets the area. This blinding screen totally cuts off their view, making the villain absolutely furious. He tells them not to play around and winds up for a devastating punch. He slams his fist down, sending a violent shockwave ripping right through the forest. Everything is destroyed. As the dust settles, Dalsin realizes they have already escaped. They slipped away during his attack. Rosso immediately scolds him for being reckless. He warns him that the stupidly dangerous move could have killed Dalsin himself. Meanwhile, the squad uses that blinding smoke to quickly escape with the giant wolf. They knew they stood absolutely zero chance in a direct contest of pure strength. Running was their only option because that guy is a complete beast. He is a top 600 adventurer, which genuinely terrifies Lo Chalai. But during their desperate escape, the royal horn slips from his grip, incredibly annoying. Once they are safe, Luke says they have gone far enough, but their job is not done. In fact, she explains that the cruel Rosso must be captured. He is too dangerous. Hearing this, Lo Chalai finally connects all the dots about the target. He realizes Rosso is that bearded guy and asks Luke why she wants him so badly. She admits it is a personal goal, leaving Owl and Eddie totally confused. They do not get her deal, but they still need to plan their next move. While figuring out their next moves, Luke apologizes to Lo Chalai for losing her cool. She reminds them their main job is still to patrol the Azaban forest. They must keep monitoring those 2 villains, but she warns they cannot fight them. Direct combat is pure suicide, and Owl completely agrees, suggesting they just observe. If they can expose their crimes, they can just report them directly. The department will handle the rest, keeping everyone safe from harm. Even though Luke thinks it is too risky, Owl and Eddie are locked in. Sitting around rank 6,000, they desperately want to climb up. They plan to use their high stealth stats to tail the targets silently. Tracking them from the shadows should keep them completely safe. Since this forest is 48th on the danger list, the rewards will be massive. It could boost their rank by at least 1,000 spots if they succeed. Sensing the immense risk, Luke begs them not to do anything stupid. But Captain Owl reassures her, promising they will not fight at all. He has no desire to be reckless. With that, the group decides to split. Luke and Lo Chalai will escort the royal horn to a safe location. Trying to protect a giant beast during a battle is just too difficult. Plus, Dalsin and Iris are hunting the cubs, making an ambush highly likely. On top of that, Lo Chalai hates seeing the royal horn get dragged into this, especially since Luke noticed just how terrified the poor beast was earlier. Once the giant wolf is safe, they agree to meet back up at a massive tree. The night watch is scheduled just in case anyone ends up needing backup. While preparing to head out, Eddie continues showing Lo how to navigate the woods, knowing that Doll and Iris might slip away if they delay any longer. The young warrior tells the group to press forward without him for now. First, he wants Eddie to share a few more details about his clever tactics. Following a swift lesson from the archer, Owl takes a spare dagger. His own sword was ruined, so Lo gives him his hunting knife as payment. Before parting ways, the veterans suggest a regular review of his training. Practicing mentally before sleeping is supposed to boost his learning speed. Now left alone, Luke and Lo refocus on securing the young royal horn. They also need to complete the ecological survey assigned by the system. Even with Doll and Iris roaming around, they must fulfill their official duty. Quietly, the two companions share a brief moment of mutual understanding. Lo is completely confident that their skilled allies will get the job done. Luke agrees, pointing out that their combat abilities are incredibly impressive. They are highly capable and definitely people they can rely on. Suddenly, a brilliant plan hits Lo, and he proposes a new destination. He wants to find the home territory of the mysterious royal horn. Perhaps they will find the rest of its pack waiting there. If that location is secure, the young creature can hide safely. Luke supports the suggestion, saying they should just let the animal guide them. She gently steps forward and rests her hand on the head of the beast. Asking where its home is, the creature instantly bolts down a path. The pair quickly run after it as it navigates the thick woods. They put full trust in its powerful instincts to lead the way. While following the cub, they spot several more undocumented creatures. Seizing the chance, Lo begins adding new beasts to their official log. He spots a bright green monkey and a truly bizarre forest moose. Lo works quickly to sketch each rare animal they encounter. Soon they set up a small camp to rest for the night. While Lo focuses on expanding his inner prana, Luke suddenly speaks up. He mentions he was merely practicing the archery concepts from earlier. Luke sits nearby under the starlight, reviewing the field report he compiled. She bluntly points out that his artistic skills need serious work. She also suggests being far more direct and objective with his words. Observing her intense focus, the young warrior asks about her ultimate goal. He wonders why she is so obsessed with capturing the target at all costs. Luke quietly confirms she has absolutely no choice but to follow through with it. Understanding her heavy burden, Lo resolves to support her until the end. He can clearly see that her sleeplessness comes from pure, driving anxiety. If she stays idle, the immense weight on her shoulders might crush her. That agonizing pressure is a feeling he knows intimately from his own past. Luke is taken aback by how easily he understands her inner turmoil. She realizes that is exactly why he trains tirelessly every single night. Help, even though her true goal remained a complete mystery to him, knowing he could offer some real support, he listened closely as Luke finally prepared to drop the mystery and lay it all bare. Luke explained how standard ranking lists always display the absolute best from the top. Down up there, elites battle constantly to climb higher and earn true honor. To prove their worth, but Luke pointed to the total opposite, a leaderboard. Ranking people from the bottom up, the absolute worst of the worst, that dark side of the lists was what she was hunting. It all started 5 years ago. Luke had a precious childhood friend named Miela, a girl blind since birth, who had never witnessed the beauty of the world. Perhaps that was why she never once doubted Luke. She always called her amazing and gently asked if she truly intended to become an appraiser. Luke always answered with absolute pride, stating her dream was to shatter records at the very top and claim the #1 spot. To her, recording history was the ultimate. achievement, while the rest of the neighborhood kids mocked her grand ideas. Insisting she would fail, Miela was the single soul who truly believed. Then came the day Miela whispered that school was simply too small for her. Miela explained that her father had scored tickets for a grand voyage on a luxury cruise ship named Bond Solutions. Hearing this, Luke was absolutely thrilled. Miela mentioned that her father received the exclusive invite through some family connections. Oh, she barely knew any specifics. She even suggested gifting her ticket to Luke, assuming a cruise would be boring for someone who couldn't see. But Luke instantly rejected the offer, insisting she would only set sail if Miela was right beside her. Grabbing her hand, she swore she would guide her every step of the way. Touched, Miela promised to ask. Soon after, Miela's mother selflessly surrendered her own ticket so Luke could board the ship for a girl who was constantly isolated by her massive dreams. Miela was her entire world, and the blind girl felt exactly the same. The family was incredibly grateful for Luke's deep devotion, but 2 days after setting sail, nightmare struck. A sudden, critical engine failure caused the vessel to run aground, and water rapidly flooded the decks. The collision destroyed over half the emergency lifeboats. That meant saving everyone would require 3 full rescue trips. Facing absolute chaos, the desperate captain gathered the passengers on deck. Left with no options, he pulled out a register to select who got to live. Standing before the terrified crowd, he started reading names for the priority rescue group, ordering them to board without any delay. Holding onto Miela's hand with absolute desperation, Luke kept her silent promise. Then out of nowhere, the captain called Luke, reading off a few more people. He finalized the roster for the very first lifeboat. She froze in pure horror, realizing Miela's name had not been called. Her blind companion gently released her grip, pushing her to move. There was absolutely no time to debate, and staying behind meant certain death for both. Miela smiled, saying she knew Luke would achieve greatness, and she had to believe in herself. Reluctantly, Luke let go and climbed into the rescue boat. The moment she stepped onto dry land, Luke instantly headed back toward the When she finally returned to the ship, Miela was gone. By the third and final rescue run, she was too late. Luke watched the vessel explode, completely shattered. She fell to her knees. Nearby, 2 crewmen whispered about how they deserved to live, while those from the ranking of the worst were abandoned. Hearing that garbage, Luke snapped and demanded to know what the ranking of the worst actually meant. Their nervous faces proved it was a dark secret. She immediately pressed them for answers, threatening to expose everything to the crowd if they stayed silent. The crew finally folded on one condition: she must never tell the captain. Then they spilled it. The ranking of the worst is a hidden list that categorizes society by their lowest capabilities. It lumps together anyone falling behind socially, economically, physically, or even mentally. Luke realized you could target those vulnerable souls with a single look. Now Lo finally understood the truth. That list was designed to determine who gets discarded when disaster strikes. Elite figures holding human lives in their hands, captains, hospital heads, and politicians, constantly used this system to choose who lives. Since then, Luke's goal has been to completely wipe this twisted system off the face of the earth. She could never forgive the ranking that stole her best friend. In her eyes, a scale that sentences people to despair has absolutely no place in the world. Lo, finally seeing where her raw drive came from, asked what any of this had to do with Rosso Cruel. Luke explained that she wanted to weaponize one monster against another, since the ranking of the worst is unofficial. Just like the unregistered criminal list Rosso Cruel is placed on, they could corner him and extract the secrets of these hidden shadows. It is the only lead to the masterminds running everything. That is why she must hunt down Rosso Cruel, whatever it takes. Lo asked if she knew who was behind it all. Luke admitted that with so many wealthy elites and politicians involved, it had to be a massive syndicate. Perhaps some dark mirror of the Institute running the underworld, though she conceded it was just a hunch, feeling the weight she had carried. Completely alone, Lo whispered that it must have been agonizing, yet she never once broke. Calling her an incredibly strong girl made her blush. Suddenly, tears welled up and she begged Lo to share his own past. Sniffling, she admitted she did not want to weep in isolation. Asking him to join her, Lo nodded gently, promising he would hold back his own tears. Sitting by the crackling campfire, Lo began revealing everything about his dark childhood. By sunrise, Luca Meldia was sobbing again. She never imagined Lo had endured such heart-wrenching pain. She finally saw why he was desperately racing toward the island of the gods. To rescue his kin, Lo, looking back, confessed she had taught him. That reckless impatience rarely secures victory, feeling their mutual bond deepen. He promised she could lean on him forever, then made an official proposal. He wanted her as his exclusive appraiser. Wiping away tears, she accepted. Promising he would never regret this choice, they sealed the partnership with a handshake. After marching onward together, they eventually set off to find their way home. During taking a break, our hero asked Luke where royal horns usually make their home. She explained they mostly live in caves because they are tough and hardy. They don't hunt, they prefer quiet shelters, but suddenly things changed. The royal horn guiding them grew agitated. It suddenly bolted. Knowing they were close to their goal, they absolutely refused to lose it. This frantic chase led them directly to the base of a massive rock. Luke immediately noticed this was no ordinary stone, it was a Musa mimic. A rare beast, she didn't even know it existed in Azaban. However, the creature was already dead. That explained a lot. Common mimics lure humans with treasure. This one was different. The Musa mimic actually uses other living beasts as bait. It harbors rare creatures to attract unsuspecting poachers. They live in symbiosis to devour greedy hunters together, absolutely terrifying. Because it travels with so many beasts, people call it a walking museum. Their guide must have been trapped inside, but how did it die? Normally, the mimic releases all its beasts at once to crush its helpless prey. This time, the mimic apparently fell victim to its own deadly trap. Dalson Iris likely defeated it, which finally wrapped up their survey. This mimic's death explained why the forest was suddenly overrun. With its death, every single captive creature was instantly freed. Their sudden release threw the entire ecosystem into pure chaos. For Luke, this was more than enough data for her report. Our hero found it horrifying. He thought poachers caused those wounds. But Luke corrected him. Those marks were made after it died. It meant other wild beasts had been feeding on its dead body. Since mimics bond deeply with their partners, the attacker was an outsider. She figured the predator must be native to the forest itself. The royal horn walked up to the giant fallen creature, rubbing against it. Our hero understood its grief. The creature had lost its home. He knew that exact pain. It felt like having your heart ripped out. The beast looked at him, its eyes filling with actual tears. Suddenly, a horrible noise shattered the silence, forcing them to look back. Wait, look who just showed up, another bloody orc from before. The monster charged, slamming its fists down, but our hero reacted instantly. He scooped up Luke and the royal horn, shielding them perfectly. Looney leaped directly in front of them to block the rampaging monster. Suddenly, the bloody orc began tearing into the dead mimic to feed. This proved their theory. The forest monster was indeed the scavenger. Enraged, the royal horn charged, leaping to headbutt the giant orc. But the massive beast tossed it aside like a mere ragdoll. Weak and battered, the tiny animal still glared at its foe. Seeing this, Lo-Tuni drew his sword, pointing it at the beast. He pointed his blade at the orc, declaring he would handle this. He wanted to use a skill that had repeatedly failed him. Even though Eddie wasn't a master, he had given him vital advice. He always believed his only mistake with prana was controlling it. But the fix was pretty simple. Eddie taught him the legendary Markman family method of prana control, handed down. For generations, confident the kid would master it. Lo-Tuni closed his eyes, focusing on his master's words. Eddie explained he already had a firm grasp on sharpening his senses, and the next step was using those senses to look deep inside himself as if he was watching his own body from above. For someone like Lo-Tuni with overflowing prana, it was much easier. When the young warrior opened his eyes, they glowed green, overflowing with raw energy. His senses fully sharpened, he observed his physical body from an outside perspective. Watching the chaotic flow, realizing his energy was a total mess, he quickly used the technique to organize it. Next, he drew his sword, pointed it right at the bloody orc, and unleashed a devastating vertical slash using the lotus flower technique, quickly following up with a brutal X-shaped cut. Luke was in shock seeing the skill finally succeed. Honestly, watching this breakthrough feels incredibly satisfying. But knowing one strike would not be enough, Lo-Tuni pushed forward, charging up even more power. Since the lotus flower relied on stacking continuous slashes, he kept Unleashing strikes, raining down what seemed like an infinite barrage, he did not stop carving up the bloody orc until finally he brought the assault to a close and sheathed his sword. He turned away, knowing the monster was done for, leaving Luke absolutely stunned by his growth. With the threat gone, Webtoon approached the massive royal horn, telling the beast it did not need to be afraid. He softly assured the creature he was not its enemy and gently offered his hand to sniff. The giant wolf sniffed his palm and gently placed its paw there, showing unconditional trust. Now, Webtoon knew it was best to keep this royal horn close since the forest had become incredibly dangerous. Meanwhile, Luke began to worry if Owl and Eddie were doing all right out there on their own. Elsewhere in the woods, a ruthless poacher stood over another royal horn, trying to carve it up cleanly, but the struggling beast just would not stop squirming, so he asked Rosocruel if it was fine to damage the corpse. Rosocruel answered that doing so would ruin its value. If the harvest was crushed to powder from the start, people would suspect it was fake, even if they intended to grind it up later anyway. Watching this shady exchange from a distance, Owl and Eddie knew they could not defeat this foe, so they decided to report them to the evaluation department instead. Since almost all the contraband was already gathered, they decided to retreat, but Dalkin Iris decides it is time to exterminate these little spying rats. With total malice, he charges straight toward the tree where the two are hiding and throws a devastating punch. The blast completely shatters the trunk, sending Owl and Eddie flying backward. Still, they landed on their feet, even while masking their presence. Dalkin had sensed them from the very start. He was tracking a beast. It was on the path they cleared. While searching for goods, he easily tracked every nearby beast. It proved that three-digit adventurer relies on more than brute force. They are incredibly sharp. Faced with immediate threat, Owl tosses a smoke bomb. Dalkin easily intercepts the artifact, claiming such cheap tricks will never work. But a sudden arrow shot by Eddie catches him off guard. It detonates the bomb, releasing a massive screen. Escape is totally useless, so they start running. Eddie knows this only slightly increases their survival odds, but he tries anyway. He quickly wipes blood from his face to write a desperate message on paper. Wrapping the paper around an arrow, he fires it high into the air. They have done all they can, hoping the message reaches its mark. Soon, Dalkin steps out of the smoke, asking if they surrendered. He mockingly calls it a smart choice since he owns this forest. He vows a single strike will end them. Owl refuses to run. Drawing his blade, Owl stands firm. Eddie prepares to give cover fire. Unlike their past loss against Asami, they will fight as a unit. Owl thrives in group battles where he can coordinate with allies. Eddie boasts he only follows strong leaders, and they launch their joint assault, unleashing an incredible surge of prana that echoes through the forest. Far away, Lochalai senses this strange pressure, wondering if it is real. Luke asks him what they should do with the royal horn next. He replies they must guard the beast instead of standing around idle. Sitting idle is not an option, but getting out of the forest with the beast means they must defeat both Dalkin and Iris first. First, they could request backup, waiting for a powerful ranker to assist, hoping a top-ranking warrior can arrive quickly to assist. Besides, Lochalai knows Dalkin is far too clever. Dalkin controls his prana masterfully, meaning simple tricks won't work for long. This forces Lochalai to suggest a much simpler strategy instead. Meanwhile, the scene cuts back to the brutal combat in the forest. The two young warriors release intense prana, completely catching Dalkin off guard. They actually had zero experience with prana until very recently. Mastering their combat techniques slowly unlocked this energy, needing only a trigger. Owl sharpened his instincts as a mercenary fighting in group skirmishes. He is an expert at reading power levels, rarely facing real danger. Eddie, on the other hand, is a natural prodigy with the bow. Supported by an elite noble family, nobody had ever truly challenged him. Because of this, neither warrior had ever tasted defeat. That changed instantly when they crossed paths with the monstrous Lochalai. Experiencing his terrifying strength was the brutal reality check they both needed. Now fully awakened, they charge directly at Dalkin. Owl lunges with his dagger, but Dalkin easily deflects the strike. Owl immediately follows up with a fierce, rapid secondary slash. But Dalkin blocks the weapon, using only his bare, prana-shielded forearm. This raw defense proves he can stop blades without any armor. Meanwhile, Eddie looks ahead and sees the vibrant colors of active prana. This allows him to fire a guided arrow with incredible precision. Aiming straight for the back of Dalson's neck, the hunter dodges, attempting to move toward where the arrow came from, but he quickly changes his plan, activating even more of his prana to force the projectile into the ground instead, right after that another smoke bomb explodes right on the spot, despite dodging the slashes. Dalson gets hit by an arrow straight in the stomach. That perfect shot came from the top of a tree where Eddie positioned himself. Dalson suddenly realizes he's been tricked and that the archer climbed the tree the very moment the fight began. Their coordination is incredible. As soon as the archer shares the positions, the swordsman press the attack relentlessly, taking advantage of the distraction. Owl moves in and drives his dagger into the enemy's leg, right at this moment. Dalson notices Owl using hand signals, understanding that he's the brains behind their teamwork. Dalson thinks he could decode the signals with enough time, but he knows this mercenary is a master of bluffs. Faced with their well-executed tactic, Dalson decides to fall back. He starts talking, saying that smuggling demonic beasts is more trouble than it's worth anyway. He claims he was just playing around the whole time because he didn't want to waste his energy for nothing. Do they understand that? He asks, and mocks them. No matter how many plans they make, nothing changes. Because of the massive power gap between them, Owl simply tells him not to underestimate them. Just like that, Eddie fires another deadly arrow. Sensing the danger, Dalson now focuses completely on the fight and manages to block both incoming attacks. Suddenly, he unleashes his true power, using his 48th rank in domination to overpower Owl and catch his dagger. Then he shatters the weapon with his bare hands, showing off his 19th rank in grip strength. Right after, Dalson lands a massive kick on Owl, sending him flying backward with enough force to splinter a tree. When he slams into it, writhing in excruciating pain, Owl collapses to the ground, leaving Eddie visibly panicked. At that moment, Dalson rips an entire tree right out of the dirt and hurls it, proving his 7th place. In weightlifting, the impact leaves Owl completely broken on the ground. Weakly calling out for Eddie, Owl can only watch as Dalson approaches, mocking those destroyed organs. He cannot even sell the mercenary's body, so he decides to just end him right there. But at the exact moment of the final blow, a green prana slash slices out of nowhere, hitting Dalson's arm and stopping him cold. The hero has arrived just in time, guided by a warning arrow from Eddie. Lying on the ground, Owl tries to speak, but the words fail him. The hero steps onto the battlefield, saying his method is pretty simple. As he draws his sword, he declares with absolute conviction that he will eliminate the villain. And so, the adventurer, ranked 2700, prepares to face Dalson, who is ranked 672. From a distance, Rosso Cruel realizes Dalson is taking much longer than expected. Although he doubts Dalson could lose to such weak adventurers, he must consider the unknown variable of the hero, Lochili, sensing that rising prana belongs to that very boy. Back on the battlefield, the hero steps up to face Dalson. The two stand face to face, radiating an incredible amount of energy. All tension snaps as Dalson takes the first step, throwing a powerful punch. He follows up with rapid strikes, but Lo skillfully parries every blow with his trusted sword. Suddenly, Lo scales a tree to unleash a sudden, flying, spinning slash, but Dalson Iris manages to block the incoming blade. Instantly, the hero drops from above, charging head-on with incredible speed while his opponent rushes forward to meet him. Their heavy collision unleashes a massive shockwave of prana that warps the surrounding air. Amazingly, neither of them manages to score a hit. Dalson Iris remarks that the young hero has improved, but sneers that it is only a little, and that he is still no match for true power. Suddenly, the beast leaps up to unleash even more deadly energy. His aura rushes forward like a raging bull, slamming the hero. Yet, Lochili stands his ground and refuses to fall. Dalson Iris charges again with a charged punch, shattering a tree before ripping it from the earth to use as a club, shouting that there is no escape for a coward. The young hero ducks, barely avoiding the massive trunk. Meanwhile, the ruthless illegal hunter leaps back into the air for another blow. Lo remembers that Dalson Iris is ranked number 672, but he has faced far stronger foes, like number 11 or even Adal, the absolute number 1. Facing this attack, he feels zero fear, pushing his own prana to its absolute limit. The pressure is so thick It glows brightly, temporarily blinding the overconfident and shocked hunter who is forced to stop. Seizing the split-second opening, Lo prepares a devastating counter, landing a deep slash that severely wounds Dalsin. Furious, the hunter snarls that it was a cheap trick, accusing him of copying his moves. Lo retorts that Dalsin does not even have a real technique. Dalsin charges blindly with another wild punch. Now, the hero knows he does not need to meet brute strength head-on. He needs strategy. He recalls the critical lessons Owl taught him about squad tactics. In this world, knowing enemy patterns is everything, and the absolute key is securing a numerical advantage. That is why Owl taught him simple, lethal patterns. Step 1 was a surprise attack. Step 2 was to lure the enemy, and Step 3 was a coordinated strike. Right. On cue, Owl leaps down from the branches, taking advantage of this beautiful opening. The mercenary lunges at Dalsin, who is shocked and furious that Owl can still move. The old mercenary grabs the beast, pinning him. To help Lo, as our hero charges, Dalsin Iris flies into a rage, screaming curses while unleashing a massive blast of prana that throws them off and shatters the surrounding trees. As Dalsin winds up for a final blow, a homing arrow streaks through the air, targeting his eye. It is Eddie's final shot. The arrow finds its mark, piercing Dalsin's eye with lethal force. Though severely wounded, Eddie fired that perfect shot, leaving the rest to Lo Chalai. Without a moment of hesitation, the hero leaps forward for the finish. It is a devastating, prana-infused slash that tears wide open his opponent's stomach. The wounded giant stumbles backward, but somehow manages to remain on his feet. Suddenly, he lets out an earth-shattering roar. Gathering his remaining power, his arm bulges and slams the ground, sending our hero flying high into the sky. Lo blocks the impact with his blade, but the impact is absolutely devastating. While Lo is still suspended midair, Dalsin screams that he will crush him the instant he hits the dirt. He admits Lo deserves some praise for surviving this long, but warns him that no friends are here to save him now. Dalsin tells him to stop being a nuisance and just die already. At that very moment, Lo suddenly remembers the time he calmed the horned wolf, gently holding its massive paw and promising that he was not its enemy. Right then, Luke bursts onto the scene, screaming for Dalsin to stop, successfully drawing his full attention. Taking advantage of this split second, the horned wolf leaps forward and delivers a brutal strike, driving its sharp horn deep into Dalsin's back. Immediately, Luke screams for Lo to finish this once and for all. Answering her desperate call, Lo drops down from above like lightning. Roaring, he descends shrouded in green energy. His initial strike connects heavily, and though the villain tries to block with his massive forearms, the relentless slashing attacks just keep piling up. The impacts grow heavier by the second, driving Dalsin into the dirt under absolute crushing pressure. To wrap this up, Lo unleashes his deadly lotus flower technique at maximum power. He slams the illegal hunter straight down, completely crushing his defenses. The impact leaves a massive crater. Right after, Lo collapses from sheer exhaustion, leaning heavily on his sword to stay upright after spending so much of his power. Luke immediately notices how badly hurt he is, but she still manages to offer a quick word of congratulations, calling him incredible for taking down Dalsin. But Lo quietly grunts back that he only knocked the monster out. He explains that while Dalsin will not be waking up soon, he is definitely still breathing, his face totally mangled. Suddenly, Dalsin reaches up and claws at Lo's face, spitting that he will drag him straight to hell. Luke screams for him to let go. But right then, she senses a weird, deeply unsettling power, and honestly, the tension is suffocating. She drops to the dirt, terrified, realizing Dalsin has become a literal monster. Despite the massive pressure, Dalsin cannot crush his skull. Lo simply tightens his grip on his sword, ready to keep swinging. In this tense moment, the villain suddenly has a flashback. He recalls his former teammates, pointing out his massive raw energy, but explaining that to actually rise through the ranks, they would need to start working together. They warned Dalsin that he had to match their pace, which absolutely infuriated him, because he always believed he was leagues ahead of them. Back in reality, he glares at Lo and Luke, calling them both pathetic weaklings. Then he wraps his hands around our hero's neck, determined to choke the life out of him. Lo is caught in a deadly chokehold. He cannot even react. Still, he tells himself that he absolutely cannot perish in a dark corner like this. He thinks of his sister, Yuna, and simply refuses to close his eyes. Memories of his entire life fly past, and a massive wave of energy begins to explode out of his body. This sudden surge is so immense that it visibly panics his enemy. A soft breeze picks up, and the heavy clouds above seem to part. Those who feed on innocent life in this sacred place are about to glimpse the true end. This foolish invader is about to witness something he will never forget. Right in that moment, Lo reaches up, firmly grabs hold of Dalsin's forearms, and tears them right off his shoulders with unbelievable force. Stunned and in total horror, Dalsin gasps, asking what Lo did. Unbelievably, our hero just unleashed the secret arts of the Thule tribe. This was Lo's signature move, the descent of the celestial spirit. This bizarre magic left the onlookers completely confused, because it looked nothing like ordinary spells, releasing an incredible amount of pure prana energy. Lo chanted the magic words and with a swift move ripped off his enemy's arm, provoking a furious reaction. Dalsin instantly tried to retaliate with a heavy punch using his left arm, but the very second he touched Lo's chest, he lost his other arm as well. Lo calmly declared Dalsin's defeat and then delivered a fatal slash to the rogue hunter's chest, putting an end to him forever. As the enemy fell, the protagonist realized how toxic the rank system really was. This defeat triggered a sudden wave of memories. Long ago, Dalsin was told he needed group accomplishments to climb up the adventure ranks, even though he cleared missions alone to reach rank 5,800, the ultimate verdict was that he lacked team spirit. Furious, Dalsin slammed his hand onto the evaluator's desk, demanding they judge him solely on personal performance. After all, he was easily stronger than most double-digit rankers. The evaluator simply replied that the official scoring criteria couldn't be altered, and his position in the department didn't allow him to make exceptions. Still, he mentioned there were unique special cases for certain ranks, like that legendary kid who became number 2 through solo play. But he made it brutally clear that Dalsin was no special exception. Fit that mold. If that conversation happened today, Dalsin would have beaten the clerk to absolute death. He was seething because despite his cold exterior, he pushed himself incredibly hard. To any ranker, that number is their ultimate dream. And they literally live just to climb higher. Left with no choice, he up joining Ryu from rank 4,600 and a rank 5,000 girl. They knew Dalsin was rushing, but considered it a massive honor to party with such a high-tier ranker, so he had to team up with people he deemed weaklings. In truth, his lack of cooperation was due to his sheer superiority. No matter who they paired him with, his allies only dragged him down. A crucial fact the department completely chose to ignore. One day, they ran into a massive griffin. While his teammates froze in terror, Dalsin slayed the beast with one effortless punch, instantly completing the mission. Yet he noticed that since grouping with these weaklings, monster encounters had spiked dramatically. Although handling them was easy, the constant frequency suspicious. Right, late one night, he caught his 2 partners sneaking off into the woods and uncovered their ugly secret. They were hoarding valuable stolen goods, researching beforehand where dangerous beasts would spawn, then luring them out to exploit a high-level powerhouse like him. To clear the field, he overheard them boasting about how they targeted naive rankers who were completely clueless, planning to use them to get rich. Worked so they could easily exploit them to get whatever they wanted. Confronting this human trash, Dalsin ordered them to drop the bag. Instantly, the cowardly boy punched his female partner right in the face, framing Dalsin to ruin his hard-earned rank. The traitor then screamed, asking how Dalsin dared to hit his own teammates, shrieking that this was exactly why he would never climb any higher. Instead, they threatened to report Dalsin directly to the evaluation department. He knew defending himself was totally useless. Their word had way too much weight. Dalsin was marked as a selfish loner. They were seen as generous, noble heroes. To rub salt in the wound, they demanded that Dalsin bow down and apologize. If he did, they would pretend nothing happened, but obeying those absolute garbage rankers just to climb pushed Dalsin over the edge. He killed them both. Zero regrets, but the evaluation department quickly uncovered his massive crime. Killing a fellow adventurer is considered a major, unforgivable offense in this world. But because of Dalsin's legendary achievements, they showed some real mercy. They did not arrest him. Instead, they stripped his rank and slapped him with a brutal 3-year ban from registering again. In absolute rage, he sold everything he owned, triggering his final downfall. By the time his agonizing waiting period finally came to an end, Dalsin gave up. He did not care about anything at all. He lived a reckless, messy existence, chasing fast cash. Then a shady dealer named Rosio Cruel approached him with a bizarre, incredibly tempting black market offer. He suggested buying a rank, fueling his deep desire for revenge. Dalson accepted. He desperately wanted to destroy this entire corrupt, broken ranking system and force the biased evaluation department to regret ever ignoring his power. Dalson knew that one day, our protagonist would face this exact feeling. The hopeless, agonizing limits of a ranker, but after their brutal clash, our hero stands victorious. Right after, the girl asks him where he is going. Exhausted and beaten, he insists that his mission is far from finished. They must hunt down Rosio Cruel. That is their only real hope. Only then can she unmask the shadow figures controlling these terrible ranks. Determined to help, he prepares to leave, but she suddenly rushes up and wraps her arms around him from behind, begging him to stop. She argues that in his battered state, even she could easily defeat him. She tells him to wait. He tries to argue, but she stops him, saying that finding a warrior willing to risk everything for her is enough. Battered and completely out of fuel, he apologizes and collapses. The girl wakes up first and immediately reports the entire battle to the evaluation department. Later, she tends to his wounds with first aid. Even though he is badly hurt, our hero insists on using his power. But as he sleeps, our protagonist drifts deep into a long, vivid dream. He sees his parents back when he was just a helpless baby. His father speaks of core secrets being imprinted deeply on his prana and heart. Someday, he will remember everything. That is why his mother always stayed quiet. She feared Louis would recall too much. To survive, they hid away. They adopted the false identity of Tony to secure a peaceful life. Reliving this memory, our protagonist finally understands exactly how his father felt. But if they wanted a quiet life, why did his father teach him how to use prana? Suddenly, he realizes his entire family knew the truth. They all knew that one day he would inevitably have to fight. Right then, his mystical dream begins to slowly dissolve. When he finally opens his eyes, he, along with Laud, the 11th ranked adventurer, Rook explained she was incredibly worried. Since Lo had slept for an entire day, and he was grateful that she had looked after him, Laud also stopped by, mentioning that he had checked in during his deep sleep, and if Lo had not woken up, he would have carried him to the royal castle. They told Lo that wild rumors about the massive mess he made during his debut had already spread everywhere. Finally, Lo managed to stand up and stretch. Meanwhile, Al asked if Eddie had gone to the evaluation department, only to immediately turn around, and Eddie replied that he just could not let them down. Lo would be thrilled to know they were safe, and that Eddie had helped them. Noticing that Dalkin could also move, Laud released his cuffs, warning him that any funny business would just be a total waste of time. Tried anything, then guards from the evaluation department stepped in to drag him away. As Dalkin was led off, Laud could not help but wonder how he had lost his two arms. They did not look cleanly severed, but rather entirely erased from existence. Laud had never seen anything like this before. He knew that to cause that level of absolute destruction, even the #1 ranked knight would be severely injured. He began to think that Lo must be hiding an insane ace up his sleeve. Meanwhile, Rook suggested that as soon as Lo recovered, he should register for other rankings. She pointed out that rankings are great for self-analysis, using Dalkin as an example, a brute who loved close combat because he knew no one could match his pure power. Testing in different rankings would reveal Lo's true strengths. Rook added that their department had special facilities to measure all kinds of secret abilities, promising to show him everything at the royal castle. Far away in the deep, dark depths of the forest, Cruel Rosso felt one last strange ripple of prana energy. He realized the boy, after hiding for all those years, had finally shown himself like it was the most natural thing in the world. Cruel Rosso wondered if he was drawing attention on purpose, perhaps trying to make contact with the island of the gods. Soon, Rosso arrived before massive double doors carved with 2 intertwined snakes. Upon entering the room, several hooded figures were already waiting. They bowed to their master, announcing they had finally tracked down the direct descendant of Babel. With this revelation, the hooded followers believed they could fast-track their ultimate plans, declaring the time had come to liberate the world from the useless shackles of the ranking system. The leader then ordered his followers to unleash their power without holding back, all for Ouroboros, their secret organization. As it turned out, Cruel Rosa was only ranked number 76 in the smuggler rankings, but in reality, he was Adam, the absolute number 1 smuggler. Second in the assassin rankings, fourth in the theft rankings, and first drug manufacturing. On top of that, he was number 1 in the Prana Scholar rankings and the supreme leader of Ouroboros, the number 1 criminal. Syndicate, talk about an insane plot twist. Cruel Rosa and Adam were the exact same person. Eventually, the group arrived at the royal castle. Rook acted quickly, sending Owl and Eddie straight to the medical bay while she prepped the report. She also tasked Laud with reporting Dalkin's beast kidnapping plot. Our hero Lo watched her order everyone around like a seasoned commander, prompting Rook to. Luke replied that she was totally used to the messes rankers made. She also asked Lud and the other 3 to fully clear their schedules 10 days from now. Their ranks would be updated soon, making Owl and Eddie completely thrilled. Hoping for great results, they waited. While they recovered, Luke decided to pull our protagonist aside. She wanted to discuss the royal horn. She explained that whenever the evaluation department officially takes a rare magical beast under its wing, they must always find a caretaker. To fill this role, she wanted our hero. Fortunately, he did not mind. He was highly curious then, and asked why she did not simply take care of the lovely wolf herself. Luke explained her department faced too many strict rules. And since this royal horn beast would eventually grow massive, the department's own facilities would become way too cramped. As an active evaluator, she could never even manage to go walk him, but as a free adventurer, our hero could go outside whenever he wanted, which was perfect for the wolf. Extremely grateful, she eagerly asked him to name him. Our hero decided to call him Ralph. When Luke asked him if there was a story behind that name, he happily replied that during his early childhood, a very brave man in his village faced a red grizzly bear, so he borrowed the hero's name. He then thanked Luke for saving him during the battle with Dalen. He asked Ralph to protect her. He then gently patted the wolf's head. The grateful beast responded with a very sweet, affectionate gesture, with Ralph now being completely safe. Under the evaluation department's care, the protagonist could drop by to see him whenever he wanted. After that, he went straight to the clinic where Owl and Darkus rested. Eddie was also recovering. He felt his official rank starting to climb and wondered what high position he would reach. Feeling busy, he finally began to really understand how other rankers felt. Suddenly, a strict nurse burst in and loudly demanded everyone be quiet, promising that if they obeyed, she would heal every single open wound of theirs in 10 days, but only if they strictly followed her exact rules. This incredibly strict healer doctor was Clara Save, an adventurer currently ranked 14th in the entire world. She immediately ordered our hero to lie down, then harshly scolded him, calling ranked adventurers complete idiots for walking around with painful open wounds. This childish insult sparked a silly healing competition between the boys to see who would recover. First making Clara extremely irritated, she yelled at them to shut up. Suddenly, their very own body bandages came alive, wrapping themselves around their bruised bodies with some terrifying speed. Clara Save's divine healing ability was completely undeniable, and in one single instant, everyone was fully recovered. During the recovery period, Luke visited them a few times, but she always seemed incredibly busy, likely completely swamped with an endless mountain of evaluation work now. Highly respected, their department was famous for being brutally rigorous and strict. Impartial institution around, and Luke was clearly working herself incredibly hard. While sitting inside her messy office, she tiredly commented to her personal secretary how incredibly complex these rankings actually were, requiring some extremely difficult and painful decisions. She then instructed her secretary to contact a Prana scholar named Illa because no matter how they could find zero actual information on the ancient, mysterious Thule tribe. Exactly 10 days later, everyone gathered in front of Luke for their official ranking update. She explained that updating a highly complex rank like an adventurer's required them to completely rent out an entire room to process a massive mountain of complex data. This meant cross-referencing information against every other single type of global ranking. Most people assumed an entire team did this. To their shock, she did. She handled almost the entire workload alone, with only brief help from a friend. They were completely stunned. After all, the ranking process was notoriously brutal. Updating 3 separate profiles on her own proved her elite skills. Luke simply brushed off the praise, keeping things strictly professional. Time for business. She kicked off the update with Owl Darkus, currently ranked at 6,300. During his forest patrol, she highlighted how he cleverly cornered Dalen, a dangerous lawbreaker, using brilliant strategy. His leadership with a makeshift squad was absolutely decisive. Because of this, Owl Dark's new standing was officially finalized. Behold rank 267, an incredible leap of over 4,000 positions. Next was Eddie Markman, sitting way back at rank 6,700. Luke praised his amazing forest performance, focusing heavily on his steel nerves. He can shoot with lethal accuracy in literally any extreme situation. His prana control was so flawless he could teach it to veterans. His sharp forest instincts made him born for this adventurer life. Thanks to these insane feats, Eddie's rank skyrocketed all the way up to 1,870, climbing almost 5,000 positions. Finally came Lo Chalai, who previously sat at rank 2,728. Luke listed his absurd achievements. First, finding 7 unconfirmed magic beast species. He also discovered what caused their mass outbreak, proving his sharp mind. Furthermore, his raw swordsmanship rivaled Dalen's strength. She praised his massive potential, his talent for absorbing advanced moves, and that mysterious killing technique. Weighing these legendary achievements, his new standing officially skyrocketed. He jumped straight to rank 1,089, nearly hitting triple digits. Luke warned him to prepare. This level of growth was totally unprecedented. She explained that a ranker truly shines when they climb significantly, not when they first get placed on the leaderboard. This represents their real growth rate, while Owl and Eddie's climb was wild. Going from the 6,000s to the 2,000s, Lo's leap was on another level. He went from the 2,000s to almost triple digits in one go. And get this, at that exact moment, the world officially learned Lo Chalai's name. From today on, his ranker life would face massive changes, both good and bad. But that concluded her update. The boys had grown incredibly strong. She smiled, noting they truly lived up to the Mars Night Order. Meanwhile, a mysterious girl borrowed a ranking panel to check the current standings. Looking at the board, she noticed a certain ranker had climbed insanely high. Nearly triple digits in a single run, even though he stole a swordsmanship style. Realizing this, the girl grew absolutely furious. But she quickly apologized, admitting she got carried away over that specific boy. Soon after, Lo discovered a hidden area inside the evaluation department. They arrived at a giant facility, the true pride of the department. This legendary training ground was widely known as the Challenge Room. Inside, some warriors studied intensely, while others trained with all their might. They pummeled punching bags with absolute fury. Luke took this opportunity to. She reminded him of her previous advice, that it was smart for Lo to register for multiple rankings. She explained that inside the challenge room it was possible to evaluate a ranker's various skills and find their standing on the spot, since this was an incredibly rare facility only found attached to the main evaluation departments in each country's capital. Updating simple rankings became incredibly easy. Lo understood that some lists, like the search ranking he updated with his rank cell recently, were simple, while complex ones like the adventure ranking actually required a personal visit to the department. Luke continued explaining that those simpler lists had fiercer competition and worked as stepping stones to climb the main leaderboards. Lo Chalai was surprisingly sharp though, and he grasped everything after just a single explanation. Luke realized he was not only brilliant, but was constantly looking for the quickest way to reach the island. Gods, excited, she announced she would evaluate his skills all day and urged him to give it everything he had, and trust me, he does not hold back. Boost his adventurer standing. She also confirmed he could freely use prana since it qualified as a skill. Lo's body instantly started to radiate pure energy as he kicked off the tests. In the short sprint ranking, he reached position 871. Next, in power and jump stats, he placed at 1,000, while in grip strength and weightlifting, he hit 2,000 and 1,800, respectively. He followed up with 934 in reflexes and 809 in balance. After placing 2,500 in lung capacity, he used prana to sharpen his senses, which led to some truly impressive scores, including 104 in hearing and 98 in smell. Finally, Luke announced they finished all the physical test categories and would now move to the resistance rankings, which took much longer. Passing by, other challengers began praising him, recognizing him as the rookie who had skyrocketed straight into the top thousands. All at once, he realized he was drawing far too much attention with those ranks. But Luke warned him to get used to the staring, considering his massive lifetime goal. From afar, the mysterious white-haired, red-eyed girl from earlier kept watching him with a strange look. Luke noted his sensory scores were incredibly high and low. Explained that he had learned to apply prana to his senses under Ed's training. She nodded, adding that some people just possessed an innate, natural talent for prana making. Feats like sharpening his sight, hearing things, and moving at high speed come. Naturally, she compared him to a wild animal, but realized his muscular strength did not seem to have much room left to develop, seeing his top ranks. In the sprint and reflex tests, Luke suggested he dedicate his focus to agility. That is a tough call, but a wise decision, noted director Gran, who appeared out of thin air. He warmly greeted Luke, happy to reunite after so long. Luke hurriedly explained to Lo that this director was an incredibly massive figure, prompting both of them to immediately bow their heads in deep respect. The director, laughing it off, joked that having polite manners won't get you any extra points in these rankings. Lo felt like he had heard those words somewhere before, and soon the details about this powerful man clicked in his mind. Gran was the boss of the Trisha branch of the evaluation department, a unique division known for abolishing traditional hierarchies to keep things fair, making almost all roles equal. But director Gran was a rare exception. The man was a legendary talent scout, known across the entire city for guiding an incredible number of top-tier rankers. Right then, Lo recalled hearing that very same name from Lud, realizing Gran updated his own rank to where it stands now. Gran just smiled, humbly downplaying his great reputation, admitting he was actually the evaluator who originally handled Dalsin Iris. Because of that, he came in person to apologize and offer his thanks. He praised Lo Chalai, currently rank 1000 as a rising genius with incredible feats who stopped Dalsin. Gran then informed him that the official investigation into Dalsin's fall was finally complete, revealing his own party members had tried to set him up. It turns out the duo lived lavishly, throwing massive parties completely unfitting for their low rank. Instantly catching the sharp eyes of the evaluation department, the two schemers were already under watch long before Dalsin ever got his hands dirty. That allowed evaluators to intercept their scheme through one of their associates whom Dalsin trusted blindly. Gran quietly confessed that evaluators put their pride on the line and fake reports never slipped past them. Still, he deeply regretted ever approving Dalsin Iris. Lo, however, spoke up, insisting it was not the director's fault. He argued that rankers must think for themselves, while the department simply acts as support. They do not need hand-holding. After all, every single ranker possesses their own honor, and Dalsin must have been following his own pride when he made those critical choices. The director then mentioned visiting Dalsin's cell to speak with him. Gran explained the rogue hunter was furious to see him but did not deny his actions. When Gran asked why Dalsin did not run, the answer was pride, a pride that makes you stand tall and show respect to your opponent. Lo made him remember that very pride, which is why the director wanted to say thank you once again. With that settled, the director said his goodbyes and left. Luke then suggested they should go ahead and update a few more categories. When Lo asked which ones, she replied that since he wields a blade, they should test his swordsmanship. Plus, out of pure curiosity, she wanted to measure his prana, but director Gran warned that measuring it here would be extremely difficult, explaining that while the nation possessed highly advanced technology, it was still primitive when dealing with spiritual prana. Gran made it clear that their current machines simply could not measure Lo's immense power. He warned Luke to prepare herself if she wanted to remain his evaluator. With that, the director left them both standing completely puzzled. Shaking it off, they walked over to test the prana measuring device. Luke noted that while special prana rankings exist, she wanted to focus entirely on his sword skills for the time being. She explained that blades have multiple categories, including specialized rankings for sheer speed. But before they began, Luke turned to Lo with a major favor, begging him not to display his legendary sword Saint style, since it was a secret technique passed down strictly from one master to a single number one ranked knight. For every other ranker, the legendary sword Saint style was a dream and an ultimate goal. It was no exaggeration to say most of them were desperately trying to inherit that style. That is when Lo finally understood the True magnitude of the technique Adal had taught him, Luke explained that even though Lochelai was throwing slashes around like it was absolutely nothing, it was actually a highly advanced technique. She believed only swordsmen ranked 800 or higher could perform such a feat, meaning out of 2 billion people, only 800 could do what he did. She explained that the founder of the Sword Saint style was the first #1 knight, Lawrence Wolfe Raven, a first-class swordsman and scholar who had created many different sword styles. The Sword Saint style was considered his ultimate masterpiece, a technique that allowed him to manipulate slashes freely, earning him the nickname of the Swordmaster. Realizing the power Lo wielded carried immense value and historical weight, Luke believed it was best to keep it hidden for now. After all, if the high-ranking knights started hating him, it would be terrible for his entire future. Agreeing to be cautious, Lo decided to tackle the sword rankings without using that style. Even though he could not use his full strength, he figured it was still better to get registered in the rankings. He even asked if it would be better to avoid registering rather than getting a low rank. But Luke insisted he would not have any credibility if he was not registered in several different rankings, and that he did not need to worry about his placement. First test was for consecutive slashes, performed on a special rock called a possession stone. It was extremely resistant to slashes, and the main goal was to strike it repeatedly within a strict time limit. A sensor counted the slashes while the stone healed itself. Lo figured using the Lotus technique would get a great result. However, he held back and threw several slashes without using prana, reaching position 149. Next came the slash precision test, which was measured by the gap between two iron plates. If the plates moved even 1 millimeter, the test was over. The difficulty increased as the gap got narrower and narrower, and if the slash speed was too slow, it would not be counted. They watched a samurai take the test and reach position 734. Noting that true masters were rare and that anyone calling themselves a swordsman should at least be in the triple digits. Right after that, Lo performed his precise slash, instantly ranking at 87. He figured that now he could use Lotus, he should start practicing the third technique. Even without even using the Sword Saint style, he already ranked among the absolute best. Imagine being that naturally overpowered. Confirmed in her instincts, Luke asked Lo for his ranking card, the one from when he entered the Azaban forest. Lo then took out his registration card, and she explained he could register up to 10 of his ranks on it. They decided to register his highest placements, and she got ready to submit the request. Right then, a woman with white hair and red eyes appeared, asking about Lo's actual rank. Then she stood in front of the stone, drew her sword for a mere split second, and unleashed a barrage of several slashes, reaching position 29. The woman then turned to Lo, saying she knew he could easily match that since he was a user of the Sword Saint. Luke was completely shocked that he had been found out so easily. Without hesitating, the woman challenged Luke to a fight. If she won, he would have to give up his sword forever. She suggested moving somewhere else because knights were watching. Luke followed her out to an open courtyard, where she admitted that the unauthorized leak of her beloved sword style was a massive humiliation for her, completely refusing to let him use it anymore. Legendary style. Offering a little courtesy, she introduced herself as Setsu Oralaya, ranker knight 305, and demanded he respect her pride. Luke, still quite confused, simply asked how she knew he used the Sword Saint style. Setsu replied that he had performed the technique openly right during his recent adventurer registration test, meaning basically anyone could have noticed. It turned out that one of her seniors, another highly ranked knight, took that exact test and spotted the rare technique. The moment she heard her senior describe it, she knew that Luke had stolen the style. Luke tried to argue he did not steal it, but she refused to listen, unable to believe that Lord Adal himself had ever taught him. To her, it was completely absurd that a classless person like Luke could have any connection to Lord Adal. Setsu insisted that she was the one destined to inherit the Sword Saint style directly from Lord Adal himself. Because he had personally promised it to her, she accused Luke of simply studying the style from some record book, copying it, and parading around with it. Fake title, which brought massive trouble to the ranker knights. But get this, she offered him a way out if he apologized and promised to never use this stolen style again. She would forgive him. In response, Luke replied that Lord Adal himself had actually taught him the technique. he then declared himself to be Adal's sole disciple, leaving the girl completely stunned. Furious, she drew her sword, shouting that some lies made it impossible to hold back her burning anger. To Setsu, his words deeply stained her very soul, insulting her pure admiration for her master. She declared that Luke absolutely deserved to be cut down, and so the rank 305 knight challenged Luke. Without wasting any time, she charged straight at him, channeling her energy and unleashing a lightning-fast slash, which Luke barely managed to block with his own blade. As he blocked her brutal strike, he felt her overwhelming presence and realized that if he just stayed entirely on the defensive, he would definitely lose. Determined to counterattack, he prepared a slash using his prana, which surged with immense power. Sensing this, she flared her own prana to an absolutely massive level and unleashed a devastating slash. Incredibly, both of them executed the Gale Slash technique, causing their attacks to violently collide, even with the same move. Her speed was clearly superior to Luke's. When their devastating moves finally dissipated, he was left with a small, bleeding cut on his cheek. Luke realized he needed more power and prepared to execute the Lotus technique. Immediately, Setsu retaliated to show him a real master's technique, countering with her own Lotus flower. The attacks clashed again as Luke yelled out, desperately trying to force his way through. An unbelievable sight formed where the blades met. A massive Lotus flower made from both of their energies bloomed, signaling a true battle between Sword Saint heirs. Luke found this highly strange, knowing this specific style was strictly passed down. The master only ever took on one disciple. If Lo was his student, how did Setsu Orlaya learn this exact style? Lo watched her, noting that her raw talent with a blade more than made up for any sloppy, unpolished technique. As Lo deflected her strikes, Setsu felt her doubts creeping in. Maybe he was right. Still, she chose to trust Lord Adal instead. She taunted him, pointing out that her special moves had already crushed him before. The Gale Slash and Lotus Bloom did their job, so was Furious Rupture next. But Lo had a confession. He had no idea how to perform that third move. She scoffed. A disciple who only knew 2 moves was a joke. It was downright insulting. Lo knew that at 17 they were the same age. Yet his official ranking was vastly inferior to hers in almost every category. Pure swordplay was a dead end. He could not win this way. So he shifted gears, releasing a massive wave of prana to fuel something else. He chanted the Lo incantation for his gentle breeze and scattered cloud spell. Setsu stood frozen. A mere rookie ranker should not be capable of high magic. His rapid rise up the ranks was downright unnatural and completely infuriating. Resolved to end this in one crushing blow, she lunged forward with everything. No slow spellcast could ever hope to match her sheer, blinding speed. She had to protect the honor of Lord Adal, no matter the cost. Summoning her own magic, she knew incantations were reserved for the elite. If this kid was actually pulling it off, he was a genuine monster. Lo snapped his eyes open, his aura flaring as the final syllables echoed. Setsu struck first, sending a massive Gale Slash to cut him off. The twisting vortex of wind tore straight through his body, or so she thought. Lo had invoked a physical divine art, elevating his state beyond her reach. He stood untouched. Setsu could only stare in absolute, disbelieving horror. She desperately scrambled to understand what kind of defense could do this. The thick shroud of prana felt like armor, but something was off. Every survival instinct screamed at her to back away. Then, in a flash, Lo lunged, gripping his hilt with both hands to deliver a brutal blow. She barely slipped past it. His posture remained completely, utterly unchanged. She had to finish him before he could pull off another miracle. Setsu prepared to unleash her destructive third technique, the Furious Rupture. But get this, Lo was already prepared to counter before she could even swing. He was not trying to defend at all, ignoring the lethal danger entirely. There was no blocking this blow, so Lo opted for pure obliteration instead. An existence-erasing aura flared around his blade as he swung at her. The edge stopped centimeters from her skull, his deadly magic suddenly vanishing. He claimed his victory, and Luke immediately declared the match officially over. Setsu dropped to her knees, completely broken by the impossible defeat. Seconds later, Lo face-planted into the dirt, entirely spent. He mumbled that he was fine, but his muscles refused to twitch. That 5-second burst of godlike power came with a massive physical toll. Setsu realized his collapse after fighting Dalsin Iris was from this backlash. The raw power had drained him, not his wounds. Tears welled up. Through her tears, she asks Lord Adal why he gave his sword style to a man like that. Luke then walked up, gently asking the weeping girl if he could call her Setsu. He explained that while high rankers worshipped the sword saint style, Setsu might have been a bit too reckless to attack someone out of nowhere. Luke got curious and asked if she had some special reason for this obsession. She confirmed she did, believing herself to be the only disciple Adal ever recognized. She explained that years ago, back when her ranking progress had completely stalled, the legendary knight suddenly appeared and secretly taught her swordsmanship just once. Since then, she felt completely sure he wanted to pass it on to her. Luke was completely shocked, noting that Adal was famous for never taking on students. But Setsu Oralaya was convinced she was his only special exception. She truly believed her talent had been recognized and that he was waiting for her. Driven by this hope, she worked incredibly hard, slaying endless monsters to prove herself. She even carried a small picture of him, safely kept inside her pocket pendant. Luke quickly realized she had been totally led on and made miserable over nothing. Meanwhile, Lochelai slowly dragged himself up, his heavily beaten body feeling incredibly sore. Even so, he insisted once again that he was not lying about the famous knight. He swore he truly was Adal's student and learned the sword style directly from him. Setsu quietly admitted that it was impossible not to recognize Lord Adal's true style. His skill was indeed the real deal, unlike her own copied, distant imitation. She realized her copied moves were completely different from his genuine, perfect style. Yet copying a style flawlessly just by watching is a mind-blowing feat. Recognizing this, Setsu Oralaya suddenly made a surprising bet with her sword. She told him that if he demanded she surrender her sword, she would. In fact, she promised to retire from being a knight that very day. Luke immediately intervened, telling her she did not need to go that far. Setsu Oralaya agreed, saying he had the right to demand absolutely anything else. She promised to accept. Hearing this, our hero got a little flustered. He stood in silence for a long time, carefully thinking about what he should ask. But before he could finish, she cut in with a sharp warning. She warned him not to ask for anything inappropriate involving her body. Luke quickly replied that he had absolutely zero interest in doing that. His blunt answer made her a bit annoyed. Finally, he revealed his requests. First, he wanted her to help him level up his adventurer rank. And second, he wanted her to teach him the sword saint style. Setsu Oralaya looked completely confused, pointing out he already knew it better. But Luke admitted he only knew how to perform 2 basic moves. He explained his skills were still pretty weak, requiring a lot of training. He genuinely admired how she copied those legendary techniques just by watching. She frowned, saying that mimicking those holy techniques poorly only brings shame. Even a loser has pride, she sighed, asking to borrow his rank plate. She wanted to search for some high-rank knight missions for him. Our hero asked the evaluator if he could even take those. Normally, lower-rank adventurers are not allowed to accept elite, high-tier quests. But an exception exists if accompanied by a registered high-rank guardian. Running those knight missions is not the fastest way to rank up. Luke agrees, but explains that the boy must expand his overall skills. Only then can he progress. True growth needs knowledge, negotiation, and strategy. Along with teamwork are just as crucial. Focus only on standard quests, a total trap. But by taking on these knight-ranking quests now, he will easily gain a massive edge to completely blow past his rivals. This is his golden chance to grow, huge. Luke adds that the knight ranking, much like the merchant ranking, places a massive premium on trust. It requires dignity, not just brute strength. And Lord Adal has that dignity in spades. Our young hero feels it too. But the flawless idol Setsu and Luke describe is definitely not the slacker he knows. To him, Adal is just careless. Hearing this, Setsu Oralaya gets absolutely furious. She immediately disagrees. Luke steps in too, defending his idol. Adal's conduct is impeccable. He is the absolute greatest, flawless conduct, nobility in every move. To prove it, Luke points out that Adal ranks 5th among trustworthy leaders. You cannot reach that ranking with swordsmanship alone, and everyone highly respects him. Luke even remembers an interview after Adal saved a village from monsters. He said that protecting the citizens is a knight's duty, and their peace is the pride and heavy weight of their sword. Setsu proudly adds that she remembers the exact date of that quote. Listening to them, our protagonist realizes he has no idea what Adal does. Their paths split completely after leaving the village, even during training. Adal kept quiet, he never talked about himself. He then wonders what his old master is doing at this very moment. Cut to a village being absolutely torn apart by a horde of monsters. Amidst the chaos, a crying little girl desperately searches for her mother until she suddenly comes face to face with a giant snake. But a knight leaps in, slaying the beast. He reassures the terrified girl. Other knights arrive, charging into the fray to eliminate the remaining beasts. They fight proudly in the name of the Knights of Maris, saving lives. Then a massive crash, the ground shakes, startling the soldiers. Before them rises the tyrant worm, a deadly danger level 11 monster. In absolute shock, the squad thinks they are done for and contemplates retreating. But one knight steps forward. No need to fall back, he says. He raises his blade and unleashes the rupture technique, slicing the worm. Slashed in half, completely eradicated, the giant beast is dead. A village elder recognizes him, the legendary #1 ranked knight. Removing his helmet, the savior reveals himself as Lord Adal. Commander of the Knights of Maris, he promises no more will die. The entire village erupts into joyous cheers for their ultimate hero. Meanwhile, back at the royal castle, Adal is actually dying of boredom. He complains loudly while his assistant congratulates him on a job well done. She flatters him at first, but then points to a mountain of paperwork. He vanished for a whole year, and now he absolutely must. She wanted him to appreciate her hard work, making up excuses for the other members of the order. Adal retorted that when he became commander, he warned them all. He would maintain the system and play the part of a good leader for the public. But he would disappear whenever he wanted. His assistant complained that he never answered her questions about where he went. Then, changing the subject, she asked who gave him that deep scar on his chest, explaining that she saw the mark while he was changing after a fight, sparking rumors across the order. Word had spread, to cause a wound like that on him, his opponent must have been someone incredibly skilled. Adal agreed with her but corrected her gently, saying that person would become highly skilled in the future. In his thoughts, Adal was just glad to see that Lo Chalai was doing well. He saw him on the adventure rankings and felt proud that he had learned the holy sword style, but at his current level, Lo could probably only use 2 techniques at most. He knew you cannot climb that high in the rankings with pure swordsmanship alone. Adal wondered if Lo truly awakened his hidden arts because the prana power he felt was just terrifying. The instant his own prana touched Lo's, it was completely wiped out. Even boosting his own power to defend himself, Adal could not resist. He felt that for someone who had awakened such power, Lo's rank was still way too low. The kid probably just had not gotten used to controlling it yet. Because of that, Adal wanted Lo Chalai to keep growing stronger, knowing the young warrior could not stay stuck at the 10,000th rank. It was far below his true potential. Meanwhile, Setsu Oralaya found a mission that seemed absolutely perfect for their group, an escort job on the Transcontinental Railroad. The client was Thomas Balulan, a merchant ranked 33, who needed protection during the train ride from the Kingdom of Walter to the Republic of Erol. The mission was highly urgent, with rumors that assassins sent by a rival merchant company were after him, forcing him to seek skilled individuals with escort experience. Meanwhile, members of the mysterious Ouroboros organization were meeting. In secret, one rogue member decided to act, keeping his plans completely hidden from their leader. He knew it was a premature move, but he insisted those legendary arts were too important to ignore. They needed to find out exactly what stage Lo Chalai's awakening had reached, depending on the situation. They believed it might not even be a problem to tell him the truth about the Island of the Gods, thinking they might get along with Lo better than they expected. Suddenly, the member pulled off his hood, revealing he was actually a robot. He noted the kid was just another human searching for that legendary island. The group arrived at the massive Dream Zephyr station, the Transcontinental Railroad connecting the Kingdom of Walter directly to the Kingdom of Erol. The train was an incredible sight, boasting 31 cars carrying 600 passengers on a 6,000-kilometer journey. Lo had never seen a train before and was amazed watching the gigantic structure moving at high speed. They already had a meeting scheduled with the client on the platform, and they knew it would be easy to spot Thomas Balulan because of his flashy appearance. Knowing that Trust is absolutely vital for bodyguards. Luke told Lo to show his rank card immediately, to leave a solid first impression. But the moment Lo tracks down Thomas Bellelin and presents his card, the stubby merchant violently slaps his hand away, spitting out that he would never trust his life to some young brat. Stepping forward, Setsu Orlia calmly asks if the businessman had bothered to look her up. Thomas admits he saw her rank, but Setsu drops a huge detail left out of the files. She is a Sword Saint candidate. Hearing those words leaves Thomas Bellelin frozen in absolute shock, his eyes bulging with pure disbelief. You see, the legendary title of Sword Saint belongs only to the absolute top-ranked knight in the entire world, and candidate is the label reserved for the elite, who actually have a realistic shot at claiming that peak spot. Rank is the main rule, but style compatibility also carries massive weight. Because of the highly specific and demanding nature of their signature swordsmanship, and because of her raw talent, Setsu Orlia was chosen as the youngest candidate in history. But then she points straight at Lo. She calmly claims he is even more skilled than she is. Lo Chalai steps up to formally introduce himself, leaving the now thoroughly convinced merchant incredibly impressed. Right after, Luke introduces herself as Lo's personal appraiser, sending a massive wave of relief through Thomas Bellelin. The merchant admits his nerves are completely shot after some recent terrifying threats, leaving him unable to trust a single soul around him. With their deal officially sealed, Thomas invites the group to his private cabin so he can brief them on the mission details. Together, they step inside the luxurious gold car to kick off their escort duty. When Lo Chalai is asked if this is his first journey on the legendary Dream Zephyr, Luke gladly takes the chance to explain the massive train's layout. She wants to be absolutely sure he can handle his escort duties without any issues. She starts by pointing out the bronze car where the budget travelers stay and explains that their actual target is the gold car way up front. Heading in the complete opposite direction, right at the very tail end of the train, lies the dedicated pet section. Sandwiched between these two extremes are 2 public dining cars, 2 department stores, a library, and 6 silver cars. These middle sections are packed with passengers who are slightly better off than the budget travelers in bronze. The massive train even features a spacious public restroom, a hospital ward, an actual garden, a swimming pool, and a high-end luxury restaurant. Eventually, they step into the exclusive gold car, which houses a full casino and the conductor's cabin. Luke explains that tickets for this high-end zone cost an absolute fortune, meaning only the wealthiest elites can ever afford them. She mentions they will be staying in the cabin right next to Thomas Bellelin once the team settles. Inside, Setsu Orlia skips the small talk and directly asks Thomas about the coming threat. The worried merchant admits it is a vicious business rivalry threatening his entire company. When Setsu asks if this involves the Lodi company, the stunned merchant realizes these mercenaries have clearly done their homework and already know exactly what is going down. Thomas Bellelin then sighs and confirms that their main job is to eliminate the ruthless assassins sent by the Lodi company, but Setsu instantly senses he is being highly evasive, as if hiding a secret, and demands to know how long he has been a target. He mutters that it is a fairly recent problem, and the rival's main goal is to ruin his upcoming trade deals inside the Republic. But when they ask about the exact nature of his cargo, he begs them to avoid asking too many sensitive questions. He clearly wants to keep those details quiet, even if it hurts their partnership. He then tasks them with watching the carriage outside while he inspects the interior. Once they get some privacy, Setsu remarks that Lo is climbing the rankings incredibly fast. That crazy speed is impressive, but she warns him it could also be a major trap. He still lacks experience. This will be his very first battle against a professional assassin. She reminds him that a true ranker never drops their guard, not even against weak enemies. Lo admits his head is completely spinning. There is just too much to learn. Luke smiles with understanding, comforting him. He did just arrive in the capital, after all. Curious, Lo asks about the automatic door. Luke explains the magic behind it. The mechanism actually runs on electricity, a specialized prana. Their upcoming destination, the Republic of Helio, leads the entire world in this research. They possess the advanced technology to harness prana and convert it directly into energy. In fact, the Dream Zephyr train they are riding was built using that exact method. She adds that the evaluation department uses similar doors supplied by the Republic. It shows how far Helio's technological influence really spreads. Hearing all this, Lo realizes just how massive the outside world truly is. He instantly thinks of his sister Yuna. She would have absolutely loved to see this place. Luke breaks his train of thought, bringing up a crucial point they must consider. Traveling to Helio might finally give them answers about the mysterious island of the gods. She admits that during her recent investigations, she uncovered almost nothing about it. Everything was clouded in total secrecy. For their department to know absolutely nothing is incredibly rare. Luke points out two major mysteries surrounding Lochili, the island, and his own origins. It is highly unlikely that these two massive secrets are just a coincidence. She strongly suspects his connection to the island is the source of his special arts. To back up her theory, she asks if he recalls Gran's words about Helio. They can do it. The Republic of Helio analyzes prana with absolute precision. The mere thought of having his unique energy analyzed gets Lo incredibly fired up. Luke smiles, agreeing that a visit to Helio will completely rewrite everything he knows about magic. Luke agrees, calling it a fascinating place that will expand his horizons. But then the heavy atmosphere shifts in a single, terrifying second. Everyone feels an ominous threat. Setsu instantly orders them to stay calm. Time is running out. This is the enemy's prime window to strike. Lo tenses up, wondering if the assassins are already closing in. Right on cue, the captain announces their immediate departure. But just then, a violent and bizarre tremor suddenly rocks the carriage. The sudden jolt causes Lo to stumble, and that saves his life. A blade flashes. It slices right where his head just was. Without that lucky stumble, he would have been dead instantly. The assassin spins his dagger with effortless precision, mocking his target's luck. But he coldly promises the young ranker that there is no second chance. Unleashing a massive wave of dark prana, the killer lunges again. He goes for the kill while Lo is completely off balance. Lo reacts instantly. He hurls a hunting dagger straight at his face. The assassin dodges easily, but that was just the bait. Lo feints quickly and slips right underneath the killer's guard. A solid hit, Lo punches him directly in the chest with shattering force. Before they could react, Lo catches his sword midair, dropping into a stance to face the fearless enemy. Without hesitation, the assassin lunges forward, starting a brutal assault, but Lo blocks the strike cleanly using his sword blade. Suddenly, the enemy leaps right over him, kicks off the ceiling for momentum, and dives back down with a lightning-fast double dagger strike. Even at that speed, Lo barely manages to dodge both slashes, realizing these attacks are constantly aimed directly at his solar plexus. Spotting a brief opening, he seizes the moment to deliver a heavy blow, knocking the attacker out cold. Before he can even speak to Luke, Lo senses two more threats nearby and sprints off to find them. But when he arrives, he finds Setsu Oralaya, who has already completely taken out the other two enemies. She notes that the ambush happened incredibly fast, and though the attackers seemed scared, their movements were still extremely aggressive and highly coordinated. Seeing how dangerous things are, Setsu suggests they temporarily halt their entire journey. However, Thomas Belelkin immediately refuses, stating that his vital business cannot stop. Faced with this stubborn refusal, Setsu decides to quietly dispose of the assassins discreetly to avoid delaying the train's schedule, simply throwing their bodies right out the window. Realizing that is how they got inside, Setsu admits it is a pretty brutal method, but completely necessary since they have zero time to interrogate them or keep them under guard. The only real solution is to get rid of them, noting that trained killers of their skill level do not die that easily anyway. Shortly after, the group gathers with Thomas Belelkin for a strategy meeting. When asked about the assassins, Luke estimates they are around rank 500 in the crime rankings, showing they have plenty of real combat experience. Plus, they move with the flexibility of a rank 300 knight. Still, Luke feels they lack skill in direct, open combat. The assassin Lo faced, for instance, was totally off balance. With a stable stance, he would have been far more dangerous. She warns them to expect more surprise attacks, stating that much stronger enemies are definitely coming, though she believes they can handle fighters at this level. Next, Luke explains a crucial concept called the digit barrier, a common term among rankers. She explains that a massive, distinct power gap exists at these specific ranking boundaries, like between 10th and 9th place or 100th and 99th, even. If the number changes by just one, the jump in power is massive. The most Common theory is that rankers push themselves to their absolute limits to cross those lines, creating an insane skill chasm. Talk about a brutal climb, she points out that Lo Chalai currently sits at rank 1089 with the triple-digit barrier standing right in front of him. This zone is absolute hell, crowded with desperate adventurers clawing their way to reach those triple digits. Because of this, missions here get way tougher, which Luke warns could be a massive challenge for Lo, knowing it is necessary, and at Lo's own request, Setsu decides it is time to start his training. They head right up to the train's roof, where the wind is howling with insane force. Setsu plans to use this environment. After noticing a major flaw when they clashed earlier, Lo's prana control is extremely basic, showing he prioritized learning flashier techniques. He neglected his basics, forcing moves he has not mastered, wasting massive amounts of prana. Setsu explains the style is far more advanced than he thinks, and to keep pace he must learn advanced prana techniques. Our hero understands their power, but believed he could grow stronger just by swinging his sword around. No way, she says. She points out a fundamental flaw. During their duel, he let emotions completely take over. His focus was gone. To prove her point, she vanishes completely. In a flash, she reappears right behind him, resting her sword against his throat. This, she explains, is their basic foundation. It is a relentless storm of strikes, too fast to see. That is the true essence, but Lo is still way too slow. But if he follows her training correctly, she promises he can master the third technique, an explosive skill known as the Raging Rupture. Setsu warns him that his current skills are just the basics. The advanced techniques of the sword saint style require an insane leap in difficulty. With some frustration, she admits even she has not mastered them completely. She only copied the moves by watching, never reaching perfect form, yet she recognizes Lo's potential. Even with his incomplete style, he is channeling the true essence. This both bothers and motivates her to push him harder. As the fierce wind howls across the roof of the moving train, they finally take their stances. The real training begins. Setsu says this technique is special, even for a sword saint. Dal used to say its uses were highly limited, but devastatingly powerful. It could wipe out whole crowds of enemies at once. Hearing his master's name makes Lo pay even closer attention. He vividly remembers Adal unleashing an absolutely terrifying, mountain-cleaving slash. That incredible sight from a year ago still leaves Lo in total shock. In that moment, Adal did not seem like a human anymore. Setsu's first lesson, however, begins in a highly unexpected way. She simply pulls out a basic rope she bought, prompting Lo to ask if she plans to tie him up. She says no, then demonstrates, effortlessly tossing the rope into the distance. If he can do that, the lesson is over. Confident, our hero tries to copy her, throwing the rope with every ounce of his strength, but to his shock, the heavy wind on the train sends it smacking into his face. Setsu explains that this is exactly why he needs more control. Since the rope is light, cutting the wind requires extreme precision. She continues her lecture, explaining that prana flows like a river, or a massive, raging waterfall, getting stronger the more it is allowed to flow. The ultimate goal is for Lo to channel this energy wherever he desires, like his hands, feet, or eyes, all without losing his balance. Even at maximum output, our wild ranker takes a deep breath and tries again, concentrating all his prana into his arm to throw the rope. But it barely goes anywhere. Setsu Oralaya immediately points out that his attempt is a total mess. She explains that prana originates in the center of the chest. Because of that, he must master controlling the time it takes for that energy to reach his limbs. Lo tries again. He pumps in more prana and focuses with everything he has. But Setsu stops him right there. She tells him that is exactly what not to do. She scolds him for relying entirely on brainless brute force. Setsu warns he will never master the correct technique this way. Worse yet, throwing around prana so uncontrollably could easily make him completely unstable. She breaks down the problem, explaining the exact energy flow he needs to master. But by this point, Lo has already burned through an absolutely massive amount of prana. Setsu calculates that if the energy needed to pass the lesson was 1, he was wasting 10 just to force his way through, even with his massive reserves. That kind of waste is completely unsustainable. Keep this up, and he will empty his tank. The entire goal of this first lesson is pure efficiency and tight control. not just blasting waves of raw power, but Lo immediately fights back. He claims he never runs out of fuel and can use way more than this without tiring. Faced with his stubbornness, Setsu quickly changes her approach. Since he is so sure about his endless energy, she challenges him to release everything. Our stubborn protagonist does not hesitate for even a single second. He begins to unleash his aura. Instantly, a mind-blowing amount of prana explodes. The pressure is so heavy, it literally bends the wind rushing over the train. Honestly, who can blame her? She expected something big, but not this. This completely shatters her expectations. Down below, Thomas Balulkin and Luke feel it too. They feel the crushing weight of that power right before a massive boom echoes. Luke instantly recognizes that aura shaking the top of the train car. She notices that his prana is somehow even more massive than before. She realizes with shock that Lo Chalai has grown even stronger. Meanwhile, hidden among the passengers, one of the assassins feels that presence. Instantly on high alert, he realizes there is a straight-up monster on this train. Someone with a level of prana comparable to a single-digit ranker. The killer notes that they only have 12 hours left until the next phase. This powerhouse's presence could completely ruin their entire operation. Back on top, Lo Chalai's prana completely dominates the entire area. Setsu wonders how anyone with this much raw power can even stay human. At the same time, she feels relieved since it will definitely scare off enemies. She recognizes him as one of the world's absolute peak rankers in raw energy. She finally has to admit that Lord Ad's apprentice is a total monster. Later, Setsu talks with Luke, relieved to have finished that first training stage. She explains that the regime consists of 3 lessons in total. And starting tomorrow, the second part is going to get even more brutal. Noticing Thomas Balulkin is still in his room, she brings up his prana. She mentions that very few people can truly tap into that kind of power. Then the focus shifts back, and she notes that controlling prana should be basic. Yet he wastes so much, barely using 1/10 of his power correctly. Finding themselves completely alone, they quickly pivot their attention to a new topic. Down to business, Setsu hands Luke a highly detailed profile of their next target. Luke is pretty impressed by the rich data on Thomas Balulkin. He notes that hiring elite knights is definitely not just for show. Setsu Orlaya explains that 1/3 of this info is basic knowledge. It is shared within their order, stuff any ranker can easily access. Any Marcus Knights member knows this, but then Luke spots something interesting. This Thomas Balulkin is 46 and ranked 33rd on the merchant charts. He is the second-generation president, running the massive Balulkin Trading Company. They run the retail giant Belly department stores. It actually started small. Beginning as Balin Pharmaceuticals, they sold simple medicine before experiencing massive growth. His father managed things well, and Thomas kept that momentum rolling. He opened 8 brand new department stores, turning them into the biggest player. They became the biggest retailer in the entire country. Hearing this, Luke is impressed. Luke comments that this target sounds like an incredibly kind and successful human. But Setsu shakes her head, explaining he is overly cautious and short-tempered. His total distrust of their protective skills likely stems from those exact traits. She predicts that although he is currently staying quiet inside his room, sooner or later, his restless nature will push him to go out again. Taking this quiet moment, Luke decides to share some intel on their attackers. Luke shares some solid intel from the evaluation department that makes sense. It makes perfect sense, making him wonder if the enemies from the Dalen Iris battle could they have used that rank cell retrieval again. Luke notes that in forests, because those areas are total danger zones, there are absolutely no transmitters around. This blocks communication completely, requiring a special encrypted line. It is meant only for ranking updates, while standard communications are highly limited. They might be multifunctional, but their range is incredibly short. Long-distance calls need actual transmitters, but getting back to those assassins. Setsu points out that the 3 killers were definitely working in perfect sync. Their attack was way too precise to be some random, coincidental strike. Usually hired solo, this coordination proves they work as a real team. She explains that while tracking down a lone wolf is almost impossible, an organized squad leaves clues. They can be tracked by their active territory, their specific power levels, and even the unique gear they carry around. Connecting all these dots, she has absolutely no doubt they belong to Despada. Brutal assassin crew, currently ranked 49th among all criminal organizations. Setsu explains further, revealing that Despada is actually a subsidiary. They are a branch of Distora, the sixth most dangerous syndicate. Despada's high command is made up of powerful rancor assassins. Dispatched directly from Distora itself, she warns Luke to be extremely cautious. Some of their deadliest elites might be hiding on this very train right now. A nightmare way beyond what they can handle. Meanwhile, elsewhere on board, a mysterious member of the syndicate quietly decodes an encrypted message. It confirms all preparations are complete. Glancing out the window, he spots his crew. They look completely terrified by that massive wave of energy from earlier. He hoped to retire without getting his hands dirty, but there is no choice. With no choice, he pulls off his glove and decides to act. This is Jamin. Temple, the rank 108 assassin. The next day, Thomas Balulin comes down from his room, devouring his food greedily. He calls it worth every single cent of its steep price, noting that testing the food for any poison beforehand was a total pain. Turning to Luke, he tells her she does not need to hold back. After all, she is the evaluator. Luke replies that an evaluator's job is to share the same experiences as the rankers so she can judge them fairly. Satisfied, Thomas reminds them to protect him closely while he walks off his food. He strolls over to a display of jewelry, calling everything magnificent, but complains that the selection of ceramics is far too limited. Suddenly, he spots a new piece by Mason, calling it an exquisite masterpiece. Watching him, Luke asks Setsu if letting him shop right now is wise. Setsu replies that keeping his stress low makes him easier to control. That way, he will be much more likely to obey when danger strikes. The knight insists they stay alert and stick incredibly close to Thomas. Then Luke changes the subject, asking how Lo Chuli is doing under Setsu. She is notoriously strict. Lo Chuli replies that he is not tired, because he is learning to control his prana much more efficiently. Luke asks if he has ever run dry outside of using his arts. She finds it strange, since training normally means exhausting your energy multiple times to grow stronger, yet Lo argues that you do not always run simply to lose your breath. He suggests that perhaps he just has a huge amount of prana, which would be highly unusual. Luke agrees his reserves are immense, but points out it vanishes instantly whenever he uses his art. At first, she thought Lo's power was simply to erase anything he touches, but if that were true, the floor should have vanished in their last fight as well. While some known arts can erase things on contact, his drains so much energy, there must be a far greater effect to justify it. She offers a hypothesis. His art could actually erase anything inconvenient. To him, Lo thinks the idea is a bit of a stretch, but Luke insists it fits perfectly. Besides, she warns him that this power does not make him invincible, as it has drawbacks. These include the worst energy consumption she has ever seen and blacking out. He can only fire it once and cannot move afterward. This means the risk of using it is often far greater than the reward. Just then, Setsu Oralaya returns and notes that the assassins have still not shown themselves. Lo realizes they have no choice but to remain on high alert. Suddenly, the train lights go completely out, plunging everyone into darkness. Shocked by the sudden blackout, Lo instantly knows this is the enemy's move to blind everyone and keep them from reacting in time. In the middle of the confusion, Thomas Balulin starts screaming. Setsu barks at him to shut up, but it is too late as an assassin strikes. She blocks the incoming sword strike with her dagger, realizing they use Thomas's voice to locate them. Setsu tries sensing the enemy's prana to find their positions, but the massive crowd packing the train car completely blocks her from identifying them clearly. Seeing her struggle, Lo asks if she can handle the fight with some light, without even waiting for an answer. He dashes off, yelling at her to keep Thomas safe. In a swift move, he drives his sword straight into the ceiling, absorbing prana from the outside. Then he unleashes a brilliant green light that floods the entire car. The clueless passengers, utterly confused by the sudden glow, think it is gorgeous, wondering if they are watching some kind of show. Lo knows he must grit his teeth and keep the cabin illuminated until the power returns, but his brave act turns him into an easy target. A killer sneaks up from behind to strike him down. Meet Joan Topol, ranked 108th, who instantly realizes the young fighter is the source of all that prana, throwing a devastating punch that sends him flying even after that heavy blow. Lo recovers and lands on his feet, grabbing his sword to aim it directly at the enemy, who sneers that it is time to hunt monsters. At the same time, Setsu Orlaya realizes that they have been separated. Another assassin lunges at her with a dagger, and she spots the black painted blade. As part of a highly prepared strategy, she also realizes their absolute best. Killers were sent to take out Lo as fast as possible. Feeling completely underestimated, she flares up, unleashing a massive surge of her prana. Sensing a strike from behind, she slips away and unleashes a devastating counter-strike, instantly vaporizing one of her attackers. The remaining assassin watches in total horror, realizing she used a skill that detonates prana to blow up his partner. In one swift blink of an eye, Setsu swings her sword 3 times, creating hovering cuts around her that glow like flakes of light, in art that hides any trace of visible prana. Wary, the man tries to buy some time but suspects it is a trap and decides he must end her. Before the train lights flicker back on, he immediately recognizes her deadly sword. Saint's style, an overlapping cut technique of equal power that holds a perfect balance. Using this style, Setsu Orlaya shapes a bomb of stagnant slashes that explodes the second an enemy steps too close. Those flakes of light condense and erupt into a massive wave of prana, instantly vaporizing the assassin. 2. Orlaya, this legendary sword style means absolute invincibility. In her mind, she is the only soul who can wield its true potential. We flash back to a past training session where the hero practices with a whip. Setsu Orlaya praises his progress, urging him never to forget how that sensation feels. She explains that this technique is called flow, a state rarely seen at his current level, usually reserved for top-tier warriors. Because of this, she has immense hope for our young hero, believing that once he completely masters the flow, he can control his output far more easily. Cutting back to the present, the hero flares his prana as he stands before the axe-wielding killer. The assassin lifts his heavy weapon, carefully studying the boy's energy current. Now the two charge at each other, their steel crashing together. The hero instantly senses something is off, while the assassin realizes his target has mastered flow. Lloyd tries to block, but his blade cracks right before a massive, bone-rattling blow throws him backward. Around them, terrified passengers finally notice the chaotic fight breaking out inside the crowded train car. The deadly assassin remarks that the kid has a bright future, but unfortunately it must end. Today, Loy realizes his opponent is on an entirely different level. Absolute power. Unlike Loy, this monster has mastered his flow completely. He wonders if this guy is one of the Despota elites Luke warned him about. Still nerved, Loy grips his sword tighter. He will not go down easily. He channels his own flow, charging at the enemy with incredible speed. The assassin notes his prana lacks polish, a tragic waste of a true heavenly gift. He notes that normally, someone born with this much raw heavenly energy would be absolutely forced to learn how to wield and master it. But he suspects the kid was cast aside during his training, which completely blocked him from ever reaching his true monster potential. Now the killer vows to end him before he grows into a complete monster. Honestly, if Loy's flow were perfect, it would be a major problem. Unleashing his own crushing prana, the assassin swings his heavy axe with terrifying force. This is the moment Loy finally understands what he must fix. Loy feels his fatal flaws, realizing he cannot control his energy properly. Worse, his flow and the legendary sword Saint style are completely out of sync. This hits hard when trying the prana self-destruction. Doing both is impossible now. Still, he fires off multiple high-level prana slashes at the enemy. The assassin effortlessly evades, noting the strain is wearing Loy down. This is just another waste of talent. The assassin suddenly hurls his massive axe. Loy barely dodges as the heavy weapon embeds deep in the wall. The killer yanks it free, using that very motion to fling sharp debris. Loy blocks the incoming debris, but the heavy impact leaves him completely dazed. Taking advantage of the opening, the assassin charges forward again. Honestly, you can feel the desperation here as Loy struggles to block the heavy blow, leaving his sword on the absolute verge of snapping in two. Loy realizes his enemy is adapting to the battle in real time. The assassin is calculating every move, not just relying on sheer muscle. Loy knows he shouldn't be losing on adaptability. He's beaten stronger opponents. The sword Saint style is ever-changing, fluid, alive. Loy shifts his combat stance, drawing out even more massive reserves of Prana preparing to unleash his two most powerful techniques at once. He blends the Lotus Blossom and Gale Slash, launching them together. But as the killer shields himself, he immediately senses a massive shift. The high-speed slashes look like thousands of falling arrows. Overlapping with every contact, they are virtually impossible to dodge. Yet the strikes feel light, he parries them effortlessly. Watching this, Loy explains that those strikes are weak for a reason. He is constantly switching speeds, but these light strikes can actually explode. That explosive force is more than enough to freeze the enemy in place. He concentrates his entire prana into one final strike, freezing the assassin in terror. Stunned by this display of power, the attack hits him square in the stomach. Seizing his moment, Lo knocks the assassin completely flat with a massive blow. He relaxes, he won, but suddenly a crushing pressure forces him to the floor. The weight pins him to the ground as the assassin reveals his poison-coated axe. It is a lethal toxin that can end a mortal life with a single scratch. Lo suddenly remembers getting grazed when the weapon got jammed in the wooden wall. He desperately begs for the cure, only for the assassin to smash it right in front of him. Lo is left in total shock as the killer mutters that it is time for a monster like him to die. Right then, his three companions burst in. They find him pale and shivering, quickly realizing he has been poisoned. Setsu Orlaya spots the shattered glass, realizing the destroyed vial was their only hope. With no other choice, Lo asks them to step back because he wants to try something. He decides to bet everything on his tribe's secret detoxification enchantment. He activates a sacred technique known as the Descent of the Celestial Spirit. Focusing all his prana inward, he easily purifies the toxic venom from his body. He actually survives, leaving everyone absolutely stunned by his recovery. Soon an announcement plays, claiming the commotion was just a surprise show. The voice reminds passengers getting off the train not to leave their belongings behind. It also warns that travelers bound for the Republic of Ariel cannot disembark. Setsu Orlaya notes that the crew made the broadcast exactly as they requested. Thomas Bellelin smirks, noting his massive financial stake in the train made it easy. His wealth easily covered up the destructive battle that took place inside the library. Meanwhile, Setsu Orlaya convinced the passengers it was just a performance by traveling actors. Even if some still have doubts, any lingering issues can be solved with money. With the situation managed, Luke approaches Lo to discuss his incredible ability. He explains that he has finally decoded the secret behind Lo's unique power. The core of the Celestial Spirit technique is centered entirely around absolute survival. It works automatically, any direct threat or pain is completely wiped out. However, he warns that a power defying nature's laws carries a very heavy price. While active, Lo is completely frozen and cannot move a single muscle. But get this, Luke noticed that the entire technique only lasts for 10 seconds. For those 10 seconds, he becomes completely invincible. If he can prolong the fight to trigger it, victory is practically guaranteed. Lo nods, fully agreeing that strategy is going to be key when using these arts. Intrigued, Setsu Orlaya asks how he defeated a much more experienced assassin. He explains how he utilized his lotus to turn every strike into a gale. By turning those deadly slashes into gusts, he focused solely on landing hits. He reminds them that the gale and lotus are basic sword saint techniques. It is incredibly flexible. That is the true beauty of his style. The lotus is incredibly versatile and can be adapted for any battle situation. He can throw it directly, attach it to objects, or detonate it at will. Setsu Orlaya remarks that this is very different from the ever-changing galaxy style. She promises to explain these legendary martial arts styles in greater depth. In her eyes, he is finally worthy of the Sword Saint legacy. With everything settled, they prepare themselves for the next leg of their journey. The young hero thanks Setsu Orlaya for the training, calling it even better than Dal's classes. This comparison instantly insults her pride, making her snap back. That his claim is totally absurd, because Lord Adal's teachings are the absolute best. In her rage, she even draws a sword on him, fully convinced he is just bragging about learning from such a legend, yet his intentions were completely pure. He only wanted to pay her a sincere compliment, but she completely misread him. The mood shifts as they discuss the enemy. Setsu Orlaya suggests they might retreat now that Lochelai has taken down a dangerous assassin from Disputata, Luke. However, quickly corrects her, explaining that fighter was merely a low-level grunt and Nowhere near the top rankers. He warns that if a true elite had ambushed them, they would have died the second the lights went out. Game over, Luke concludes grimly that this fight is far from over, and luck has been their only savior. But the real threat is already moving. At the central station, a girl watches a clown juggling sharp knives. He silently notes that if the assassin fails, he'll have to board the train himself. He figures the grunt they sent earlier lost battle simply because he was rusty, having spent too much time doing desk work. Since this failure is completely messing up their plans, the clown realizes he has no choice but to handle this personally. Suddenly, a shiny gold coin drops to the ground. The moment a bystander reaches for it, the clown fiercely shuts them down, warning them to back off. He snatches it up quickly, muttering about how his old street beggar habits never really died, since handouts kept him alive back then. Just then, another traveler accidentally bumps into him and quickly apologizes. The clown stares at his unique features, asking if he comes from the Republic. The traveler, who wears a strange metal mask, nods and says he's finally heading back home to visit someone very important. Meanwhile, back inside the train carriage, the hero rejoins his companions and Setsu asks if he slept well. He nods, replying that he did, and apparently even mumbled in his sleep, with the quiet night safely behind them. He asks how close they are to the Republic of Ario. Luke answers him, explaining they departed the central station last night and are already halfway. There, Thomas Balulkin, looking extremely paranoid since the recent attack, announces it is lunchtime and retreats to eat alone in his private compartment. Seizing the chance, Setsu speaks up about the deadly assassin Lo Chalai just defeated. She points out that while that attacker was tough, far stronger enemies are coming. With this threat looming, she walks right up to confront Thomas Balulkin directly, demanding to know what he is hiding. The merchant breaks into a cold sweat. Honestly, anyone would be suspicious here. He nervously asks why she is so paranoid, prompting Setsu to explain that sending an elite assassin makes no sense over a simple business dispute. There must be a darker secret behind this chase, so she drops an ultimatum: spill the truth right now or they abandon the mission. Setsu firmly states that when a client hides critical details from their team, they have every right to pull out to avoid pointless, deadly fights. She notes that since Luke is backing them, the guild evaluation department will absolutely take their side. Growing completely desperate, Thomas Balulkin promises he will reveal the full truth and double their pay if they just keep protecting him. He finally confesses that he is secretly negotiating to secure the mining rights. These are the rights to insect steel, the raw ingredient for a drug called papillon. Thomas explains that papillon is a notorious drug, and its key ingredient is a powder refined from this exact steel. It is incredibly easy to make with the right materials, making it nearly impossible to monopolize, yet skyrocketing demand guarantees massive profits, acting as a primary funding source for powerful cartels. Underground syndicates have relied on papillon since its very debut. With this revealed, Thomas is facing a massive conflict involving far more than just a simple corporate rival. He is up against brutal syndicates. Lo Chalai asks why he even wants the steel, sending Thomas into a defensive panic, swearing he would never manufacture the drug. His sheer desperation convinces the group to keep moving forward. Setsu realizes that, just like back in the Azaban forest, this job is getting far more dangerous, driving up its overall rank. She welcomes this perfect opportunity, knowing that such a brutal, high-stakes quest is the fastest way to rank up and secure legendary rewards. Setsu is driven by a deep personal goal: inheriting the elite sword saint style and replacing Lord Adao as the kingdom's ultimate champion. She believes climbing to the absolute peak will finally earn her Lord Adao's hard-won respect. Since they are now officially traveling together, she gets right back to training young Lo Chalai. She warns him that their enemies are far stronger than expected, meaning they must master his energy flow immediately, since he can already tap into it. She knows it. This power completely shifts the playing field. Now, lesson number 2 is all about keeping that power stable. To achieve this, she demands he jump out and run alongside the speeding train, leaving him completely terrified as he watches the ground blur by. Meanwhile, a strange metallic bug is secretly spying on them from the shadows. A robotic figure observes Lo Chalai and his 3 allies on their dangerous escort gig. He notes that despite almost dying in the Azaban forest, they are still desperately climbing up the ranks. all to reach the mythical island of the gods. Meanwhile, in a dark alleyway, a terrifying clown is brutally beating the three failed assassins half to death. He screams at them for drawing attention to the Despotata faction, insisting their group has a reputation to uphold. The wounded assassins plead, blaming a highly skilled knight and a terrifying swordswoman with monstrous energy. The clown decides to track this knight down personally, as they're unique. Aura has a distinct, easily tracked signature, but seeing his men trying to escape, he decides to end them immediately. Them on the spot, he leans out, unleashes a barrage of knives, and hurls two deadly blades directly at our heroes on the passing train. But in that exact split second, the robotic sniper fires from his window, perfectly deflecting the incoming blades before they can even touch their targets. The psychopathic clown is left completely baffled. Who just ruined his shot? The mechanical sniper knows direct interference is dangerous, but he believes that if Lo Chalai can successfully unlock his true potential, it will ultimately benefit his own faction. For now, he simply watches to see what happens next. To use him as a lab rat, he sends out a metallic beetle that lands right on the clown's shoulder and stings his neck. The man feels a sharp, sudden pain as an intense and heavy pain spreads as an injection of nanomachines enters his body. The robot calculates 7 minutes until the terminalization is complete, hoping this newly upgraded clown will push Lo Chalai to his absolute limits. Meanwhile, back at the training, Lo is running alongside the speeding train, desperately trying to keep up with the crazy pace until he finally collapses from pure exhaustion. Setsu Oralaya tosses a rope down to Lo, who grabs hold tight, channeling her flow. She pulls him back onto the roof. He realizes that unlike his bottomless prana, his physical body has its limits, and overdoing it will ruin the entire mission. When she asks about the training, he promises he can handle it because he finally grasped the real goal of the second lesson, just running. Normally was never going to cut it. As his feet hit the ground, he focuses prana into his legs to sprint faster, maintaining a continuous flow. He actually manages to outrun the train, but a tiny slip in his focus makes him trip and wipe out. Hey, nobody said mastering this would be easy. And realizes he just needs more practice to balance his body with the energy flow. Setsu Oralaya is genuinely impressed by his speed, and then Lo asks where their evaluator, Luke, went. He learns that she is currently interrogating Thomas and digging into his past just to be safe. Thomas denies any drug smuggling ties, but they are still looking into whether he is planning something else, if that is true. This entire operation is getting shut down. Still, Setsu seriously doubts Thomas is a bad guy, remembering how happy he looked while talking about his shop and praising a competitor's Voss. Lo agrees, figuring he is just an ordinary merchant. Setsu points out that a greedy man obsessed with money would never offer such sincere praise. Plus, Thomas has quietly donated massive fortunes to rehab clinics. Because of that, she decides to wait for the results of Luke's investigation, fully confident it will prove their client's innocence. Before the assassin arrives, Setsu explains the third and final lesson, fusing the flow with the sword saint style. This is something he can only master through real combat. She tells Lo to keep his flow active at all times, and he nods in agreement. Right then, the clown crashes down from the ceiling, landing heavily while muttering that his timing is perfect. Setsu instantly suspects he heard their whole conversation. Sure enough, that creepy robot's metallic beetle is nearby, likely broadcasting everything. Luke suddenly arrives, but Lo Chalai screams for her to fall back. Meanwhile, he quickly sizes up their opponent. The clown is 1 meter 80 tall, weighs 80 kilograms, and hails from the northwest continent. From those details like his bulky forearms, he identifies him as a member of the Despota organization. Even unarmed, Lo can tell he is high ranking, and his raw power is on a different level. This is Nile Shooter, the number 21 ranked assassin. Setsu reinforces the massive danger, explaining that he can turn absolutely anything he touches into a lethal projectile. Nile Shooter instantly puts his deadly ability to work, throwing. He hurls objects at Lo, who manages to dodge. Then the assassin throws an entire sofa. Lo dodges it by a hair, realizing that without Setsu's warning, that heavy projectile would have killed him. A throwing master. This is totally new ground for Lo. Looking closely, he notices something weird. The clown's eyes indicate that he is being controlled by some crazy tech. which explains why he strikes with such intense force, no expression. Setsu Aurelaya spots an even more terrifying threat. The maniac is reinforcing each projectile with his own flow, making every single launch hit like a literal cannon. Realizing how bad this is, Lo tells Setsu to get Luke and Thomas to a safe spot. They notice that for some reason the killer clown is targeting only Lo. Setsu is totally confused, not understanding why Thomas, the main target, is completely being ignored. Since their third lesson is real combat, Lo decides this is the ultimate chance to master his flow. Honestly, nothing beats a live-or-die test. Setsu nods, promising she will be right back once the others are safe, and she departs. Just like that, he is alone. Lo settles into his combat stance. Instantly, the clown unleashes a barrage of chaotic, lightning-fast throwing attacks. Lo uses his sword to deflect the reinforced items, but the swift assassin throws two objects at once, leaving our hero briefly unsure of how to react. He must adapt, so he quickly channels flow to his feet and to his fists, getting ready to launch a massive counterattack. With fast footwork and rapid moves, he dodges the incoming debris and slashes with his blade, sending those items flying. To Lo, this crazy killer is merely a stepping stone on his long journey toward the legendary island of the gods. The tragic backstory of Nile the Shooter is pretty dark. An orphan taken in by circus troupe, not to learn to perform, but to be sold into human trafficking. To survive, Nile secretly copied the unique skills of the other performers. This actually allowed him to replace the subpar juggler and steal his spotlight. Day and night he practiced throwing, knowing all too well that failure meant being thrown away. The circus went bankrupt. He still kept juggling because juggling was his only means of survival, until a professional assassin took him under his wing. This was a shocking discovery. His innate gift for taking out targets bloomed. When combined with those crazy throwing skills, it became a terrifying power. Nile killed countless bad guys, ranking as 21st strongest globally. But today, all thanks to a mysterious, shadow-dwelling scientist, Nile is just a brainwashed puppet with zero free will, wildly attacking Lo like a beast. Our hero keeps dodging until the clown hurls objects at a massive chandelier to create a distraction. Seizing the opportunity, Nile lunges right at Lo, unleashing vicious slashing attacks. The guy is absolutely relentless. His ammo is instantly refueled by the broken pieces his heavy strikes create. This makes it impossible for Lo to close in while the clown holds any items. Faced with this endless barrage, the hero patiently waits for the perfect moment to counter. He waits for the flying objects to zoom past, then unleashes a powerful gale skill. Lo's technique shatters the projectiles before the clown can reload. He then utilizes his flow to close the distance in an instant, charging straight at the assassin. But surprisingly, Nile smashes the floor, grabbing fresh debris to reload and unleashing another devastating barrage directly at Lo. By now, the train was completely destroyed. Even so, the hero managed to dodge the final blow and appear right behind the clown. Using a hole he personally smashed in the ceiling to launch a surprise attack, dropping through the opening as their brutal fight raged on. On top of the train, Lo kept channeling the intense flow of prana. He knew a master's technique is always the ultimate guide to follow. He had legendary mentors, including the Master Knight who first trained him. Lord Adal, the strongest man in humanity, even if only for a single year. Along with him, a young sword saint and a miracle assassin had guided his path. With them in mind, he changed his entire perspective. He realized he could no longer move normally while focusing on his prana flow. Running was practically impossible, making his original sword saint style completely useless now. That basic form was just a temporary fix from before he understood the flow. Now Lo had to rebuild his entire style from the ground up, blending his swordplay with prana to truly master Lord Adal's true style. He unleashed his island blade technique against the killer clown, striking hard. A massive gale force slash surged forward, but the clown blocked it instantly. He seemed completely unharmed. However, seconds later, a torrent of vital fluid began leaking from his body, revealing he was severely wounded. Our hero realized this crazy custom style actually worked, showing his training paid off. He was finally mastering Lord Adal's legendary sword saint style, ready to advance. He immediately prepared for the style's third technique, the devastating fury of cataclysm. Right then, Lo noticed something strange in the clown's eyes again. A mechanical device was hidden inside. He realized the sword saint style wasn't actually what the controlling robot wanted to observe. The puppet master wanted Lo to show off his tribe's secret martial arts. Suddenly, the clown began unleashing his prana in an overwhelming torrent. Lo noticed two colors of prana swirling, but ignored it to stay focused. He kept his attention entirely on the fight, especially when the enemy revealed a brand new hidden weapon right after ripping his own shirt open. This freak was incredibly strong, carrying an endless supply of lethal hidden daggers. Using his dual-colored prana, the enemy hurled the blades, but Lo deflected them. With his sword's wind, he kept pressing forward, trying to close the gap. But get this, right as he tries to advance, his entire body suddenly freezes. Forcing the sword saint-style through his prana flow carried a massive toll. Trembling under the strain, he looked up only to find the clown had vanished. Suddenly, a giant tree was hurled straight at him, forcing a quick dodge. Despite being exhausted, he spotted the clown lurking deep in the forest, matching the train's speed while effortlessly ripping up massive trunks and throwing them. A terrifying display of raw power instantly reminded Lo of his fight against Dihan. Determined not to let the trees wreck the train and ruin the mission. To make his move, he channeled powerful prana directly into his feet. He launched himself skyward to meet his enemy, refusing to lose a battle of pure power. As Lo unleashed his island power, the robot declared the moment had finally arrived. The clown leaped forward with terrifying speed, and our hero braced for impact. Louis realized he was about to take the attack head-on, but at the last second the enemy grabbed his heel to smash him down, knowing it would end him right there. If that maniac threw him, Louis had zero choice. He had to use a secret technique. He began chanting the ancient incantation of the Chili tribe, which was exactly what the robot was waiting for. Louis saw the machine and wondered if it was backing up the crazy clown, but there was no stopping his activated art. The robot announced it would now analyze the technique of Louis. Suddenly, several sharp claws shot out toward the hero, making a high-pitched screech as pure prana boosted the power of the technique. The machine confirmed the ability to disrupt reality, but noted that the connection to Babel failed. Even so, the massive effort was too much and Louis collapsed onto the ground, totally drained of energy. The robot asked if that was his limit, introducing itself as Gem Contra, a member of Yurioros. Louis had never heard of this criminal organization. Gem explained that just like Louis, they were also seeking the fabled island of the gods. Gem declared the clown useless now and executed him on the spot, leaving Louis completely shocked by the brutal move. Right after, a beetle crawled out of the corpse, returning to the shoulder of Gem. Gem explained it was a prison beetle, a tiny terminal it had developed to run on prana, besides being used for communication. The bug injects nanomachines into targets to turn them into a personal node, meaning it could turn anyone into a puppet, a pretty terrifying thought. Just then, Setsu Orlai arrived, seeing Louis down on the ground. She asked if he was all right, realizing his exhaustion came from using his art. Suddenly, a massive prana blast from Gem shot right at her, but Setsu swiftly dodged. The robot warned her not to get involved, stating that crushing her would mean absolutely nothing to it, even though Louis was exhausted. He forced his prana to spark, trying to stand. Gem noticed his energy generation had started. It identified him as the type who converts a crisis into raw power, wondering if some past trauma drove him forward. Right after, Gem Contra declared this would end quickly and snapped its metal fingers. The train sped up dangerously because Gem had taken over the entire control system. It dared Louis to show his true potential, warning him that if he failed, every passenger on board would die. Panicking for the innocent people, our young hero forced himself back up on his feet, roaring with fury, but right then, sneaking up behind the robot, Setsu Orlaya ambushed it, landing a heavy strike on the back of its neck. But that attack ricocheted off a barrier that suddenly appeared. She realized the shield was incredibly solid. Just then, Luke arrived to help the boy. Grabbing him by the shoulders to pull him out of danger, the robot decided not to waste time chasing them, since it had completely lost interest in Louis now that he could not use his tribal magic. Gem even commented that the kid did not seem to belong to Despotada, leaving Setsu wondering what this enemy group and goal were. To provoke him, Gem asked if Louis would fight harder if it killed Setsu Orlaya instead. She grew furious at his normal conversation was out of the question. The fight was on. Facing Setsu Orlaya, ranked 305, was Gem Contra, ranked number 2. A fierce clash erupted between them, while Luke carried Louis to safety. Setsu realized right away this runaway train was the robot's fault, noticing it was executing a highly advanced rearguard technique, while the battle raged on. Luke carried Louis toward the hospital car, which was positioned quite a far distance away. Once there, Luke hid Louis in a private cabin inside the silver car and asked him who that guy was. Louis revealed that the guy belonged to Ouroboros, leaving Luke in absolute shock. She knew exactly what kind of unspeakable crimes this terrifying organization was capable of. After all, Ouroboros was the premier evil syndicate dominating the criminal world. Their monstrous members were the most feared people alive, and now they were on board this very train. They weren't just hunting Thomas. Suddenly, Luke realized the terrifying truth of their arrival. Their actual target was Louis, not Thomas Balulin. Overwhelmed with worry, she made a quick decision. She would investigate Louis's mysterious background later. For now, she needed to keep him safe here. If their enemy really was the dreaded Ouroboros, she knew she stood zero chance. None. But joining the fight wasn't an option, especially with everyone's lives on the line. If she didn't find a way to stop this runaway train, every single passenger would die. This was no longer a simple escort mission, and she was desperately short on allies. Right then, Thomas Balulin showed up, determined to check on Louis's condition himself. He refused to stay locked inside his room while everything was falling apart around them. He instantly noticed that Louis was suffering from a critical prana deficiency. To save him, he decided to perform a highly aggressive medical treatment. Finding the right medical supplies, Thomas quickly prepped the instruments. Proudly explaining that he was the son of a master pharmacist, Luke trusted him completely, asking him to watch over Louis while she went to stop this runaway train right now. Without wasting a second, she rushed to the cockpit to find a solution. Suddenly, the loudspeakers blared as the captain warned passengers to brace for a massive impact and evacuate immediately. Absolute panic erupted. Toward the rear cars, now watch closely. Luke's sharp eyes scanned this chaotic crowd and spotted a highly skilled mechanic ranker. She begged him for help to stop the train. Spotting the thick calluses on his fingers, she immediately ordered him to the engine room. Fortunately, he obeyed. Evaluators like Luke are highly trained observers. They see everything. That's how they solve massive crises completely alone. She knew exactly which specialists were required to handle this mess. Raising her voice, she called out to the fleeing crowd for specific experts. She yelled out, asking for mechanics at level 40 or higher, and prana scholars at level 120. Meanwhile, Thomas treated Louis. He half expected the boy to be deeply suspicious of his intentions, perhaps thinking Thomas set up a fake request to smuggle dangerous insect steel. But to his absolute surprise, Louis looked up and said he didn't doubt him. As a ranker, Louis knew that reaching rank 33 required legendary dedication. Realizing the mustache man must have poured blood and sweat into his craft. Deeply touched by this rare trust, Thomas promised to save the boy's life. But he gave a stark warning: this aggressive treatment would carry a heavy cost. Powerful medicine would drastically shorten his remaining lifespan, but it was his only hope. And it was certainly better than dying. He then asked the high-rank adventurer to protect him down the road, knowing Louis was not the type of man to just stay settled in a place like this. Right then, old memories came flooding back, reminding Thomas of how desperately he needed money as a child. His father was a gentle, kind-hearted man with absolutely no head for business, and because of that, his mother packed her bags and abandoned them. From that day on, Thomas and his father endured endless mockery for being seen as a pathetic family. The constant need for money consumed him, eventually driving him to make a pretty drastic decision. He took a medicine that could easily become a highly dangerous drug if misused. Using what his father had taught him, he built a business entirely from scratch, offering special side deals to anyone who bought the medicine, which quickly drew in local thugs and made them loyal customers. Completely oblivious, his kind father just did his best to serve every single customer with a smile. Slowly, the pharmacy shed its miserable vibe, transforming into a place of genuine warmth and energy. Rumors of their amazing service spread fast, and their customer base began growing incredibly fast by doing clean, honest business. But of course, trouble was already brewing. Thomas did not realize he had crossed an irreversible line. Past actions never just disappear. Feeling like he had made a complete fool of his gentle father, he vowed to spend his life paying for his sins. Years Later, as president of the prestigious Balulan Trading Company, he became a high-tier merchant. Ranker through an appraiser's strong recommendation, even though he claimed he did not deserve the honor. The appraiser gently asked if his hesitation was due to his old ties to illegal drug trafficking. She then explained she was offering him the rank fully knowing his history and that she also knew about his massive donations to rehabilitation centers to redeem his past actions. To her, Thomas Balulan had paid his debts long ago and was completely worthy of her backing. She urged him to spread his noble ideals to others. It was only after growing up that he realized his father was a truly magnificent man who only ever wanted to do honest business, so Thomas proposed a deal. He would accept the rank, but he would turn himself into the authorities the moment he felt his sins were fully paid off. The appraiser agreed to the terms, and that is how he became the number 33 merchant. Back in the present, he tells our protagonist that the medicine he is providing can be highly beneficial if used correctly. He must make this new business venture succeed by driving up demand for the legal medicine. They can completely wipe out the illicit market. If he pulls this off, he will finally feel his heavy debt is paid. Deeply moved, our protagonist promises to visit Mr. Thomas' shop soon. Balulan replies that he would love that if they survive. Meanwhile, let us see how Setsu Orlia faced off against the Yura Bureau's member. Seeing her sword fail to cut him, she realized she had to break through his absolute iron wall of a defense, a special technique of solidifying prana taught back in the Republic. The enemy mocked her lack of knowledge, telling her not to fret, but Setsu snapped that this was not a classroom. She would figure it out. She circles around for a sudden back attack, but he anticipates her every movement perfectly. He fires instantly, grazing her. Gem explains her fatal weakness. Her entire energy flow has a massive flaw, making his signature fluidity style the ultimate counter. To an analytical mind like his, her energy is boring. Setsu quickly realizes she is facing a highly specialized opponent. Physically weak, but he is armed with advanced technology. To break through his armor, she decides to use overwhelming power. She pours a massive amount of prana into her blade. Setsu takes the heavy stance, the third form of her style. Destructive Fury, a move designed purely for absolute devastating force. But this brutal strike puts immense strain on her blade. She must strike with the blunt side. That keeps her weapon intact. The dense energy specializes in crushing armor rather than slicing through it. This is the only impact technique in her entire style. Now watch, the knight activates her skill and unleashes a crushing blow on Gem. A massive, violent explosion erupts. The entire field vanishes in thick smoke. Suddenly, a bullet cuts through the dust, grazing her shoulder again. Through the clearing smoke, Gem emerges with his inner circuits exposed. He admits it was a decent strike, but not enough to destroy him. Setsu stares at his hanging wires. What is he made of? Gem simply replies, to him, she is a fascinating research subject. He notes that her sword style alters slightly with each user. As an unorthodox successor, she is the absolute perfect case study.